one thing I remembered, like I think the next planet with people is actually 4 light years away, 4 or 5 light years away, and it's massively overpopulated, I think. I'm not
Well,
sure.
that didn't work out too well for them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's like just an example. It even can go much worse. I think they said they're like even more, like a digit
37
more.
billion.
Yeah, 40 billion. Man, what the
Well, they're all dead now.
okay. This is already done. Okay. So.
The next section of this film makes it even more difficult to ignore the reality of these extraterrestrial visitors.
One of the most convincing UFO cases of all time began in January 1975 in Switzerland. The experience began as a UFO abduction case. A Swiss farmer was taken aboard a spacecraft, articulated words with the occupants, and began an exchange of information that has continued on and is going on today, still going on today. The spacecraft flew out of the blue and landed. The occupant got out and stood in the grass and sat on the grass and talked to the man, and they had an exchange that lasted 20 minutes, and there have been 116 contacts since then. Case involved a Mr. Billy Meier. In response to his question, they said that they come from the Pleiades. They said that they are here observing humanity, that they have information, some of the information is of a scientific nature, and that he would be asked to pass it to other people. They say that they are not gods, they're not superior people, they are men just like we are men. And he's taken hundreds of photographs of the Pleiadian spacecraft operating in Swiss airspace. And this has all been checked by the computer. The computer says that this object is on the order of 20 feet in diameter and about 120 yards away. It agrees with what the witness said about the diameter. He says it's 7 meters in diameter, it's about 21 feet.
That's
even
it.
The sort of portholes or whatever those are.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm 100% behind those.
Yeah.
100%. There's no way Billy could have gotten that without seeing it.
Yeah.
So he might have seen this, and then as time went on, other things happened and other crafts came into being.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. But
do you think there's a possibility that and this is like purely speculative, that afterwards Billy might have been like messed with or something?
That's also a possibility too.
You know, because seeing something like that, putting those photos, that's a big deal.
Yeah, especially back then.
We have no case on record with that volume of information delivered by extraterrestrial contacts to a contactee, a UFO contactee. And the information in there is just staggering, just phenomenal.
On the planet Era, the planet had this ancient library they could not access until Billy opened it.
We're going full circle here, yeah.
He's a single guy, in the mountains of Switzerland somewhere.
Yeah.
You're not going to let a guy ruin your security.
The information covers technical and scientific data as best they can explain it to us in terms of the words that we use in our technology. It gets into spiritual problems, spiritual development of man and our relationship to deity. It describes other existences in space, other human beings living in other planetary environments. They're here because they're concerned about us, their younger brothers. Our technical potentials have exceeded our spiritual capability of handling the information, and we are now in a position where we can destroy ourselves, and we don't have the spiritual development to prevent it.
Nuclear weapons, we have AI, we have robots, we have laser weapons, microwave weapons, we have biological, chemical weapons. The weapons manufacturing on this planet just builds things to kill us.
Yeah.
And we're killing ourselves through overpopulation. We are destroying this planet, we're hollowing it out, we're sucking the oil out, we're polluting it, we're poisoning it, we're poisoning ourselves, we're getting cancer, we're getting AIDS, we're getting COVID, we're getting nanoparticles, we're getting microplastics in our blood. Autism, everything. The list goes on and on and on.
And because of this, we have become a laboratory experiment. They are waiting to see what we're going to do. As a matter of fact, they don't see us solving the problem. They see us as an insane society rushing headlong to destruction. And that only a change of mass mind on a mass scale can influence it. And they don't see this happening. And that's staggering because it's us that's involved.
Greetings. Welcome to Ancient Library and a second episode where we're going to do or continue our deep dive on the Billy Meier case. And I'm here with my guest, Doogs, again, and we're going to get straight to the point and jump into interesting corroborations with like real-life events or discoveries and the prophecies and predictions which are contained in the Billy Meier case. And we're going to start with a question which is like asked for long times on this planet, and it's who built the pyramids? And there was actually recent discoveries where some Italian scientist was showing data that he actually thinks that there is like structures, tunnels underneath the pyramids. And if you like know the Billy Meier case and read something of the contact reports, you know that this is like not the first time this was mentioned. So I think we're going to jump right in and talk about the pyramids. So yeah, what's up, Doogs?
It's great to be back. Great to be back. We're going to talk about a lot of different topics. So the pyramids, there's actually been a news story on top of the news story. So the first story is the scientists used synthetic aperture radar to detect structures deep below the pyramids, at massive structures deep below the pyramids. And this made a big splash in the news. Now, another story just came out about how different scientists looked at the aging of the rocks and said and concluded that the pyramids could be 20,000 years old. So we have one group of scientists saying something big is under the pyramids that looks man-made, not natural, large structures that go very deep. And we know this from the contact reports already. And then we also know from the contact reports that the pyramids are much, much older than the scientists realized. Now, I want to start with a couple points. There are three categories of the Plejaren contact reports. The Svath contact reports, which is from when Billy starting at five years old and going to another 11 years. Then the Asket contact reports, and then the Samyase blocks, which is the current ones. So we just came out with contact reports 925 and 926, but long ago when Billy was a teenager, he was meeting with Asket, and in the Asket, basically called the Asket Introductions, Asket took Billy with her beam ship, landed him on top of the Sphinx, and they got out, they put on invisibility cloaks, and then she took him in tunnels under the Giza pyramids for hours and hours and hours. Basically the whole night they were underneath there. They went down, snuck past security guards who had deadly weapons, lethal weapons, so they were invisible. They went through an invisible wall, and they went down and down, zigzagging, and down ladders and down tunnels and down caves, and all these tunnels zigzagging down and down and down for hours until they got to the bottom. And when they got to the bottom, they came to this huge open cavern with a giant 300-meter diameter saucer-shaped spaceship with a couple different smaller spaceships parked in one of the corners. And Asket showed Billy some old artifacts, and they looked around, and he wanted to look around and explore. And then they walked back up. And when he came back to the surface, the sun was rising. So they were basically gone all night.
Yeah, and this is like you got the story in great detail. There was like some things I did not actually remember, but I just want to say in general, this is like some OG corroboration, because I think there could be happening, like he was telling the story, I don't know, in the 70s, like actually where he done the trip, or maybe even earlier, and he was telling the stories in the 70s that he was going underneath the pyramids, and then all of a sudden, long way in 2025, 2026, I think it was 2025. There's like scientists saying there is something under the pyramids. And I mean, okay, you can say, okay, it's the pyramids, it's some very famous thing on the planet, so maybe you can tell a story about this, but this is like some true corroboration. And this is not the only one which you can find in the Billy Meier case. And I think it's very interesting that there are more things coming to light as the time passes. And yeah, I mean, the question who built the pyramids, I mean, we're gonna go into these things a little on later, like because the pyramids, as far as I'm concerned, were not built by normal humans, or actually it was not only normal humans, there was some other influence. And yeah, I think we're gonna go into this a little bit deeper, or do you want to elaborate on the pyramid thing?
Well, let's talk about that later, but let me mention some corroboration. So this is a key point when anyone's approaching the Billy Meier case with an open mind and critical thinking. The way a lot of people prove to themselves that Billy Meier is telling the truth is that they read something they've never heard before, and then years later, it comes up in the news as a new discovery, and it's something Billy Meier already wrote down or said a very long time ago. So the pyramids, something being under the pyramids a long time ago, or them being older than we realize, are two examples. And science is way behind as far as the Plejaren knowledge. So there's a couple other corroborations I'd like to talk about. And the biggest resource for a list of corroborations is theyfly.com. And that's Michael Horn's first website. And if you type in corroboration, you'll see well over 100 corroborations where Billy's talking about the solar system, he's talking about diseases, he's talking about the climate, the ozone layer, the Earth's magnetic field moving, he's talking about the ocean currents slowing down, he's talking about the glaciers melting, and this is decades ago. And every time a new story comes out in science, it's like another nail in the coffin that Billy's been telling the truth the whole time. And there's 3 corroborations out of more than 30 that I've experienced over my now 13 years. So when we talked a few months ago, I had been 12 years into this case. Now it's March 2026. And now I'm entering my 13th year of studying this case pretty much every day. And I've read less than half of Billy's books. So I've read 35 books out of Billy's 70 books, and that's still less than half of the information he's written. But I've discovered several dozen corroborations, and some of them are very near and dear to me. The first one is
Yeah.
autism. Billy was talking about autism more than 10 years ago, and just recently in the news, there's been some acknowledgement in the scientific community, including in the Trump administration and with Robert Kennedy Jr., about autism. And Billy talked about Tylenol and Panadol, which is acetaminophen and paracetamol. They're pain relieving medications. And in 2017, in Contact Report 688, Pata, who was a medical doctor, is talking about paracetamol. He says it causes side effects, it causes autism, asthma, abdominal pain, emotional dullness, blood count disorders, stomach pain, and all these other physical disorders. He's listing off all of the disorders. He's talking about glyphosate in 2015 in Contact Report 634. He's talking about that's one of the causes of autism, and it's also a carcinogen. And then in the special bulletins, FIGU puts out special bulletins between the contact reports. They take news articles and they put them into newsletters. And in 2015, on April 22nd, um, they are talking about, they have an article here from 2015. It says painkiller paracetamol leads to emotional blunting. And I want to address one of the skeptics. I'm not going to name him, but he had on Michael Horn to interview, and this is kind of a debunker guy. And he said, I want the Billy Meier case to be real. I really want to believe him. And Michael Horn lays out all these facts, and the guy just does not accept it. Unfortunately, this skeptical UFO person has an autistic child. And I sent him this information, and he didn't respond to me. And I said, look, if you want a corroboration of Billy's telling the truth, the Trump administration admits Tylenol is linked to autism, and you have an autistic son. And if that's not proof enough that Billy Meier is telling the truth, mentioning this 10 11 years ago. And he's not the only one. There has been other studies in the past 10 years that are linking Tylenol to autism, but you should take a closer look at it and put away your bias and your hatred, because all you want to do is debunk people. And the truth has been there the whole time. And this also ties into glyphosate, which is Roundup, a pesticide. So this is another controversial subject. Billy Meier talked about glyphosate in Contact Report 574, which was from 2013. And Patah goes on, he says, glyphosate is dangerous and causes cancer, deformities, and miscarriages, as is also the case with all pesticides and herbicides, as well as neurotoxins, which penetrate into the food, and then they're sprayed on the food, and then we eat the food, and it goes into the animals, the water, the environment, and he goes on and on and on. Now, glyphosate is also one of the causes of autism. So we have multiple causes of autism. It's pregnant women taking Tylenol, so the paracetamol. They're eating the food with glyphosate. There's also a link to vitamin D deficiency. And there's also some vaccines which they don't list. But again, in the news, we have another corroboration, which is about vitamin D. And the doctors came out with a major new study. This was just in December of 2025. A major statistical error has kept vitamin D recommendations dangerously low for decades. So the scientists misread the error, and they used to say that the World Health Organization recommends 200 IU of vitamin D. And then now they're saying you might need up to 9,000 IU a day. So this is not medical advice, but humans might need 5 to 10,000 IU of vitamin D every day, whereas the mistaken scientists misread the information, and they were recommending 200 to 500 IU a day. So this is a huge difference.
Yeah.
And in the contact reports, Patah, who is a medical doctor, talks about vitamin D quite a bit, and along with vitamin C and other vitamins, it's a major cause of health problems if you don't have enough vitamin D. Now, you can get this naturally, of course, but if during the winter, or if you live in a cold climate, you're going to be low on that. So that's actually 3 corroborations that have real world, actionable intelligence from the contact reports. It's very specific, very specific. I mean, they go on. I only read like 1 or 2 sentences, but Patah goes on for paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs about, autism and vitamin D and glyphosate and pesticides and herbicides and vitamins and minerals and all these things. So this is just 3 corroborations out of more than 30 that I've discovered, more than 200 that Michael Horn has listed, and there's a lot more things to come in the future that scientists are just about to recognize.
Yeah, I mean, about autism, I mean, we can talk about the numbers. I just mentioned them before we were recording. I think it was like in the 1970s, it was like 0.8 child, like in 10,000. And now it's like, I think the peak, the highest rate is in California. And it was like 1 child out of 12.5 boys. Like it was 1 out of 31 children. And I mean, for some reason, the boys are even, it's a little bit more worse on the boys' side for some reason. But imagine, it's like it was not even 1 person in 10K, and then it's like 1 in a dozen. And I think this is very crazy if you see it's like only 50 years away, like where we got this certain rate. So there actually it cannot only be 1 factor. There must be multiple factors, or maybe even like accumulating effects of things like bad health and like things like bad things which like getting triggered in a genetic pool or something. But it's all accumulating effects. And to talk about the corroboration thing. And if you talk to a skeptic, I mean, some people got some healthy skepticism, and some people are very idealistic in their debunking efforts. And if you like talk to a person which is low, so it already got the thing in your head in his head that the case is bad. So they search for plausible deniability in both directions. So if you say to them, okay, it was written in the contact reports 30 years ago, they go ahead and said, okay, I cannot prove that it was written 30 years ago. Maybe they just changed and edited the contact reports. And then you counter them and say, okay, it's copyrighted and this and that. And it's all people just believe what they want to believe. But some people, some skeptic people, I talked to some people who got a very bad impression on the case, and then they dug a little deeper, and now they're somewhat neutral, which is, in my opinion, the best state to have. You don't need to be like running around and getting Billy Meier is true on your chest tatted. I think that's, even if you really think it's the case, I don't think that's like the right way. So to be neutral on this case and be a little bit skeptic, because it's actually very insane information, I want to say, and very ontological, shocking information. But yeah, I think that's some great examples. And the last thing I'm going to say on this is, I'm not in this for so many years as you and like Michael Horn, and I already discovered like a few corroborations. You just nailed it on the head, where you were saying that you like see things, see events, and then you later on you see the corroboration and it just clicks. And I even got a few of them, and I'm not even so deep into the material, and it makes just sense. Like it's pretty mind-blowing that you get these, I would say, like epiphanies, corroborating epiphanies at some point. And this is the only case where I actually experienced that. I mean, we can go to Charles Hall and see what actionable intelligence he can provide. And I think it's not much.
I just wanted to mention one more thing. 20 years ago, I met a guy in California who has an autistic son, and he was raising money for a documentary film about autism. And he sent me the cover sheet, or the proposal for his documentary film, and the title of the film was 1 in 140. And now it's, 1 in, I don't know how many, but there's definitely something wrong with the environment or our food, or the glyphosate or the vitamin D or the vaccines, whatever it is, something very wrong. We as a society have a responsibility to stop this epidemic.
But imagine, I mean, we are not kids anymore. We are not old. We are pretty much in the middle of our life. And if we think about getting children, and we're actually getting confronted with the fact that, okay, if you got 4 children, you probably got one, at least, maybe more, which is like got some severe disease, or it's like severely on the spectrum. And this is like, even like, do you want to produce kids in this environment where the collective power structure is actually giving nothing about how the quality of life is for the future generations? So it's the same with overpopulation. I mean, we can cut on this later, but overpopulation, always this gets mentioned. People say, oh, look at South Korea, look at Japan. These are like 2 countries where they're actually not getting a lot of kids, but it's like there's 98% of the globe where things are actually pretty much different, and it's more like cultural things. We're not going into different cultures and stuff, but it's like some people producing 10 kids, some people, like people who are actually pretty cautious, are producing 0 or 1, and I can understand it, to be honest. And yeah, it's like, if actually are aliens watching this, I mean, I can understand if they are got 0 ratings for how we handle things on this planet. But yeah, not want to go now.
The point I wanted to make about the health information is that there is literally life-saving information in these contact reports.
Yeah.
And Billy is the only person I know who's giving specific information that can save people's lives and prevent diseases. That's all.
And maybe you can give me some links. I would like to link the contact reports, the contact reports which are connected to the topics we are covering, in the description below, and so people can read for themselves. Like you said, Petar, you said, is like the medical doctor, and if you write whole paragraphs, people can go there, and if they're interested. And this is like not only for autism, this is like for any other topic, every other topic in the case.
Almost everything.
Yeah.
So let's go on to the next subject. What do we have?
Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about is, there's much talk right now about like actually maybe some future earthquake activity in California, and there's even some geologists who are putting out content, putting out news, talking about warning signs about this. And this is like another thing, when if you read the contact reports, and even where I was going over the case for the first time, this stuck with me. And this was like the San Francisco earthquake prediction, or I don't think it was a prophecy, but they were actually saying that there's like going to be a great earthquake in the near future. They said, I think it was at the turn of the century. And I mean, depends on how you see the time frame. We are actually just there. So what you got on this? Do you got any information on the earthquake prediction?
So the Playaran used to give Billy an entire list of natural disasters that would happen in the coming weeks and months. And they gave very specific information, but nobody did anything about it. So they kind of stopped doing it. But there are some major earthquakes and volcanoes and other natural disasters that are going to happen no matter what. Well, one of them is the Apophis asteroid. Two is the San Francisco earthquake. Three is the Pacific Northwest tsunami and earthquake, which is going to happen off the coast of Oregon and Washington and Seattle in the United States. And there are others, things that are happening farther in the future, like the Yellowstone caldera, the uh, volcanoes in Italy and Mount Etna, and even in your neck of the woods, the Eiffel Mountains. Can you imagine
Yeah.
someday the Eiffel Mountains are going to erupt with lava and there's going to be volcanoes and earthquakes in the Eiffel Mountains? That's crazy to think of, even though that could be farther in the future. The San Francisco earthquake case is the most interesting because Billy was taken into the future with his camera, and he took at least about 11 or 12 photographs of the city, and they call it like the Erstzeit. So not really sure what that means, but it was probably like just the beginning, like just after it happened.
Like
So
how they call it how?
the Erstzeit,
like ERST.
Ezeit, Erstzeit. So
Okay.
I think it was
Erst
like
side.
the initial shock. There maybe there's like four shocks or whatever, but they took him there. San Francisco was on fire. Buildings had collapsed or cracked into like the Transamerica building. So he took at least 10 photographs of the destruction from above, and then the his friends and investigators are sitting around the kitchen table one night, and he says, "Hold on a second." He goes into his room, comes back with a bunch of photographs, and passes them around to the people sitting at his kitchen table, which included Wendell Stevens and some of the investigators. Well, they're looking at photographs of San Francisco destroyed by an earthquake, on fire, burning. And this really shook them and scared them. And one of the things that Wendell Stevens noticed was the cars were very futuristic looking. They were bubble-like, they were rounder than the cars of the 70s. They had glass roofs and they had no side mirrors. And that's the key is that right now, companies like Audi and Tesla are, wanting to replace the side mirrors with cameras and screens on the inside of the car to improve the aerodynamics of the vehicle so they get better gas mileage. So I think within our lifetime, we're going to see that earthquake happen. And not only will it affect just San Francisco, but it could affect much more than that, the entire state of California, all the way down to Los Angeles and San Diego. And it's just a matter of time, just like Apophis and other disasters. So there may be areas that you live, if you're listening to this, there may be areas affected in the future by natural disasters that are mentioned in the contact report. So this is again actionable intelligence. It's going to happen, and there's really nothing we can do other than to prepare and be aware of it.
You mentioned Apophis. Do you want to say something about Apophis? I think the
It's
consensus.
probably the biggest. It's probably I mean, other than how we're destroying the planet, Apophis is the biggest external threat. It's a large rock about the size of the Empire State Building,
Yeah.
and it's going to either hit Earth or just miss Earth on April 13th, 2029, which is in 3 years from now,
Yeah, it's a Friday as well, yeah.
Friday the 13th, or it's going to come back 7 years later on April 13th, 2036, and it's going to smack into the Earth, according to the Playaran, between the Black Sea and the North Sea.
So okay, so they're
And
actually saying it's gonna be hit at the second attempt. So the first one is actually it's gonna like they say it's not gonna hit in 2029.
they don't say specifically
Yeah,
like either one is a great risk. They can't give
yeah.
They
But
can't tell us everything. They said it's your job to deflect it or else it'll hit the Earth.
yeah, this is
That
like, I mean,
means we have to use nuclear weapons in space to push it off course. That's the best way that they recommend.
yeah, and and the science is talking about, I think it's pretty much the same. They say 2029, it comes like pretty damn close, way closer than the moon, I
Hmm.
think. And this is actually a pretty rare occurrence. And they said, I mean, they cannot even calculate the thing so far out, but they say if it's basically not hitting 2029, it's going to be basically the same story 6 or 7 years later, what you just said. And you just said it was April 13 again. I mean, that would be pretty crazy if it's like, if it's hit like in the same date 6 years later. But I mean, that's like semantics at this point. But yeah, I
There
mean,
are there are projects to study it. I have found several articles where MIT and other universities are studying ways to deflect asteroids. There's something called OSIRIS APEX, which is
yeah,
a satellite probe called OSIRIS-REx was repurposed to follow and track Apophis when it comes around in a couple of years. So there are space agencies that know about it. There are government officials that were sent specific information from someone who follows the case, who worked for the Pentagon, sent it to President Trump in the Trump's first administration and other officials. So I don't know if the United States is doing anything about it, but there are probably also other countries like Russia and China aware of it too. And I'm most concerned about the nuclear power plant in northwestern Ukraine and other nuclear power plants in between the North Sea and the Black Sea. So I'm talking about Poland, Czechoslovakia, um, Western Ukraine, and countries like that, Romania, Hungary, um, countries in that area. I'm most concerned about, and if it does hit, it's going to crack open the earth and cause an enormous amount of destruction. So
yeah, there's actually an artwork in the material from the case. Somebody made a great artwork. I'm going to put this on the screen then. And it actually shows like the trajectory or basically where it's supposed to hit according to the information. And I just want to say, I mean, if you're like incarnated in the Ukraine these days, you're actually a warrior because I don't want to say, but it's like actually pretty hard. I mean, they got
Hmm.
the war and then they actually, it's like a prophecy that they get hit from an asteroid. It's pretty
But
rough,
it's
to be
not a
honest.
prophecy, it's a prediction.
Yeah, it's a prediction. It's yeah, we can
Hmm.
point out, you can point out the difference if you want, because some people just exchange these terms, but it's actually pretty different. I mean, a
A
prophecy.
prediction's going to happen.
Yeah,
It's sort of written in the stars. It's a natural scientific event. Our planet has been hit with asteroids before, and whenever you see a shooting star, that's a little tiny asteroid coming through the atmosphere and burning up. And I,
yeah, and the prophecies is basically prophecies are not they can be changed. It's just
yeah,
like look out, and you're basically gonna get confronted with a problem, and if you solve the problem, you can like basically nullify this prophecy. It's not like
or avoid the
written in
worst of it.
stone or avoid the
Yeah,
worst
yeah.
of it. Yeah, and I think that's pretty important because yeah, I mean, there's some other things, but we're gonna not touch on this right now. I mean, the last thing I got here is the Bermuda Triangle, because I think this is like some good example for a thing on this planet where we don't know much about, and it's pretty good explained in the contact reports if you want to explain it, but it's just a small
The
thing.
Bermuda Triangle turned out to be a lot more complicated than I thought. There are there are natural there's like five things there were like five things going on in the Bermuda Triangle that caused the disappearance of ships and planes. Some of them were natural, some of them were extraterrestrial, and some of them were supernatural. So basically, everything you heard about the Bermuda Triangle is true. However, since they talked about it in the 1970s and 1980s, some of the things are no longer occurring. So the largest activity is no longer happening. Now, there were some natural things in the Bermuda Triangle, and they were methane gas bubbles that bubble up from the surface and sunk ships. The other thing were rogue storms and tidal waves. So the weather could be fine, and then all of a sudden there could be a flash,
Unpredictable.
unpredictable wave or a
Yeah.
flash storm that would take out ships. The other thing was piracy. There could have been human pirates that took over ships. The other thing they said, there was some extraterrestrial activity in that area, and they don't give more information on that. And the final thing, and this is the weirdest one,
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's about the
there
sun.
was an alignment of planets that caused some kind of magnetic time portal anomaly that lined up, um, and some people flying planes or traveling through were actually lost in the time shifted time portal, time dimension. They flew. It's really weird. You'd have to, kind of read the contact reports to get the exact information. But there was some alignment of planets and stars that caused this one area to cause time anomalies and so some kind of like dimensional door to another
Yeah,
alternate
it's
system.
basically what people think the Skinwalker Ranch is. Basically, something along those lines happened. Like, this, not gonna go too deep on this, because I think the Skinwalker Ranch is just like a theatrical TV series where like mysteries are getting covered, and it's basically saying, oh, this is like this unique spot in this area which like's got some interdimensional things, portals or whatever. And yeah, you're basically saying the Bermuda Triangle is as weird as it gets, yeah, presented in our current society. And I remember visuals from movies when you say dimension gates and storms and tidal waves. So it's actually
And
pretty
loss of
crazy.
time. And
Yeah,
just want to say that since nowadays the alignment is not aligned anymore, so there
yeah,
is not as much there that the portal is inactive now. So there still could be methane bubbles and other storms and pirates and natural things and natural storms, but there's no more time
yeah. I
anomaly
think there's like
going
this
on now.
mimicry effect where people think, okay, we go in like pirates or something, go into Bermuda Triangle and use like this mysticism to do their own shenanigans. I can imagine that. Yeah. Yeah, the thing I was remembering was something like you said, it alignment with stars. I think there was like some sun. They mentioned some like strong sun radiation, which was basically hitting us at some weird angle. And then after some time, after some date, I think in the 90s somewhere, we moved out of this range. And so some effects are not occurring anymore. And yeah, this is like, it's actually, yeah, actually pretty complex.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, other discoveries, we talked about the rings of Saturn thing. This is like one thing where Billy Meier actually predicted like discoveries in space before like humanity was actually done this via their scientists. So yeah, I mean, there's so much things like we talked about Three Eye Atlas. It's actually pretty hard to find something about the thing if they I mean, it's already gone, but it's actually it was coming. Scientists, we got a government shutdown, and then it's gone. I think this will ever be remembered as some, yeah, not like celebrating the scientific will of humanity. Like, actually, there's like one thing flying around which is like pretty new to us. And I know there's like there was like dozens or hundreds of interstellar objects. We just were not able to discover them at the moment. So
We're
maybe
about to find so many more because
yeah,
the Vera C. Rubin Observatory just came online, and that is scanning the southern sky every night. And it's the most powerful telescope to do this, and it's scanning the southern sky every night and cataloging everything and comparing it with previous nights so that any changes or objects that are flying through are going to be detected in near real time. It's the it's the best new project of its kind, and unfortunately, we only have the southern sky to scan like that, but it's going to lead to a lot of new discoveries and interstellar objects.
yeah. Okay, great. Do you want to mention any other corroboration right now, or do we want to just go to the next point?
Well, I mentioned where people can go to find the corroborations already, and they can go and look for themselves and discover them for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, like I said, maybe later on we remind some things and I can just add that. It's no problem. So, so we go to the second point, I guess. Talking a
All
little
right.
bit more about the case, like basically what we've done in the first video, a big chunk of the first video was like breaking down the research of the case, talking about corroboration, or like basically talking about evidence or and corroborating witness reports, and like the fake evidence thing where actually some pictures were like foul evidence which were not taken by Billy Meier. And of course skeptics and stern believers got their own thing in their head where they follow plausible deniability and say, okay, it's all fake or it's all true, and it's such a polarizing case. So it's the only case where we got like 5 points here, and only 1 point is about the case research. Every other case would only include this type of point, because there is not such a high amount of actionable intelligence. I cannot say it enough, to be honest. And this is like, you mentioned the San Francisco earthquake and the time travel aspect where Billy Meier took actually photos. I like actually totally forgot about this. And it's like this, just because there's so many things in this case, I cannot remind everything at the same time. And that's actually crazy. So we go into the case research and talk a little bit more about some aspects which we missed in the first episode. And yeah,
I
what you
want
want
to
to talk
talk
about
about
first? Yeah, go ahead.
the early research with Wendell Stevens and what was going on 50 years ago in the late 70s and early 80s.
Great.
And Wendell Stevens took his team over. Now, Wendell Stevens had retired from the U.S. Air Force, where he was a test pilot. He had already seen UFOs in the United States Air Force. And when he was stationed in Alaska, I believe the project he was working on is Project Ptarmigan, which is spelled Ptarmigan, the name of a bird, Project Ptarmigan. His plane was mounted up with film cameras, and he would fly up in Alaska and they would film UFOs, and then he would land the plane, and then the film would be taken off and sent somewhere to be processed. So when Wendell Stevens retired, he continued his UFO research and amassed the largest collection of UFO photos in the world by any, private investigator. So when he had seen the first Billy Meier photos, he was blown away and said, "These are the clearest and best UFO photos I've ever seen in my life," which was true. And we learned things later on about Wendell, such as we later learned that he got a ride in the beam ship and he
Yeah.
never told anyone his whole life. And we also learned that Paul Hellyer, which was the Canadian Minister of Defense, also met the Plejaren and may have gotten a ride, or at least met with the Plejaren ETs briefly.
Okay, at this point, let me quick interject, because I think it's very interesting. I mean, can you give a list of like persons you know where you actually, because many people say, okay, Billy Meier, the turn off for the most people is Billy Meier is claiming he will be the only one who gonna be in contact with ETs and something, and it's like immediate turn off for some people. And then you see things like this, which is basically not actually that, but it's a little bit more complex, because they're actually just saying he is like in this role because he is like in this, it's going into the spirit form and all these things. He's on the mission. He's basically the medium for these aliens, I will say. And not it's like not every other person can be that medium, but it's not about like quality or better than something else. But you see things like this and you actually see it's not the case, because yeah, I think it's just like some, how can I call it? It's some security mechanism, not to get people here. They come there and think they can take a flight in the beam ship. But if it's really necessary, it's actually, there are actually more people than Billy Meier who were in contact with these
True.
ETs.
So
And
the Plejaren define contacts a little differently than some other people. Everyone in the world, the UFO community, wants to claim they're an experiencer and they're a contactee, but they're really not. They just have schizophrenic imaginations in their head that they're channeling someone, or they see a light in the sky and they think they're seeing an alien ship. That's not true. What is true is that the Plejaren say they're only meeting regularly and on purpose with Billy, but we do learn that they did meet several other people in history, such as Nikola Tesla, such as Paul Hellyer, the Canadian Defense Minister, such as
Victor Schauberger, I think.
the scientist who came up with the Drake equation, Professor
Yeah.
Drake in the United States, and Pata met with one of the U.S. presidents and told him not to launch the nuclear bombs in Japan. And they popped in front of George Adamski and called him out as a fraud when Samyasi and Billy went to his lecture.
That
They
is crazy. I
they
mean, you
met
mentioned,
with they met with Nikola Tesla. and told him to destroy his death ray. And then there are other scientists who received impulses, telepathic impulses unknown to them, like Albert Einstein. But yes, the George Adamski thing is one of my favorite stories.
This is crazy because he was actually faking a contact and then he got a real one.
I'll tell the story real briefly. So
Yeah,
Billy
great.
went to downtown Zurich to see a UFO presentation by the fraud George Adamski, and Billy knew he was a fraud because the Polarian said no one's meeting with extraterrestrials on Earth. And George Adamski gives his lecture and shows his terrible photos that look like flying saucers. And at that time, George Adamski was probably one of the most famous people in the world that claimed to be meeting with and photographing UFOs, and everyone believed him. Well, after the lecture, um, Semyasi was there uh, in an invisible. She was invisible. I don't know if it was Asket or Semyasi. I think it was Semyasi. She was made invisible, and she was listening the whole time. And then afterwards, they convinced him to talk in a private room alone. And Billy confronted him and said, "Look, you're lying. You're not meeting with extraterrestrials. I'm meeting with extraterrestrials." And he got really mad and upset, and he's like, "Oh, you're crazy!" And then all of a sudden, Semyasi turned off her invisibility cloak and was standing right in front of him, and he turned white as a ghost for a couple minutes and couldn't even gain his composure for a couple minutes. And then she told him who she was and that he was a liar, and he admitted the whole thing to being a fraud. He said, "I'm just lonely. I just wanted attention. I wanted to be famous, and when people believed me, I started making money and got all this attention." And he admitted to being a fraud. And then,
Now you can write a book about meeting Semyasi
but
on
he
true
didn't.
events.
He continued lying his whole career and
Yeah,
selling his talks and fake photographs, and he never admitted to being a fraud publicly.
that is a crazy story. Never knew
And then
this.
we
It's
just
like
learned a
insane.
couple weeks ago that Guido Musburger got 3 rides in a Plarion beam ship, and this was 50 years ago, and Guido has now passed away. But every couple months when there's a new contact report, we learn something new, that either Billy and Ptah met someone back in time in person they talked to, or someone that we know met with the Plarion briefly, like Guido, like Nikola Tesla, like Paul Hellyer, like Wendell Stevens. So there's obviously just always more new information coming out
Yeah,
because these contacts are going on this whole time. So I want to talk a little bit about Wendell Stevens and why basically all of the other UFO groups turned against Billy Meier and the Billy Meier case and tried to shoot it down. Now, in order to do this, we have to watch a 2-minute clip of Bob Brown. And Bob Brown was one of the co-founders of the International UFO Congress. So Bob Brown was basically the person who started all of the UFO conferences in the United States. And he was there, and he knew Wendell Stevens, and he knew what was going on, and he saw all of the UFO groups becoming jealous of Wendell Stevens for actually being the first person to get real, clear, physical evidence of alien contact. So let's go ahead and just watch this 2-minute clip of Bob Brown.
So it was an amazing case. To this day, I say it's still the best case that we have out there, ever. So I read this book by Gary Kinder, and he told about how these organizations killed the case in the United States, at least, by saying that it was all phony. And the reason that they said it was Meier agreed to have them over. His material was open to anyone that wanted to come and see it. They could investigate the sites, the photos, the motion picture film, the witnesses, the physical evidence, etc., etc., etc.
Yes, he was very cooperative, wasn't he?
Very cooperative to anyone that really wanted to know the truth of it.
Yeah.
And so they said, we'll be there next week. We'll have our representative there.
Yeah.
But first we have to cable you our exclusivity agreement. And Meier said, wait a minute. What exclusivity agreement? Oh, we can't afford to take our limited resources and put them into the investigation of your case unless we have an exclusive on it. And Meier said, no, absolutely not. What's happening here is a story for the world. It's not exclusive to anyone. So each organization independently came to exactly the same conclusion. We have to torpedo this case in case our competitive organization latches onto it and agrees to this and reports it. We have to torpedo it first. So it was this intense competition and rivalry between these organizations that caused them to torpedo the Meier case. They did it in the worst possible way, the way that most torpedoing is still done in the whole field today, and that is an investigator from their armchair, sitting in their armchair, okay, proclamation, oh, that's phony, that's all wrong, that's not real, those people are $3 bills, etc., etc., etc. Still the way it's done today. But to find out about 12 years later, right, that these organizations that I supported had done this, I was furious, okay, number one. But more importantly, number two, after reading the book, I realized that this is a real case.
Yes.
A real case.
Indeed.
And so, night and day on my mind, the biggest question in my mind, I would go to sleep with this question on my mind, I would wake up with this question on my mind, right? Is the Meier case real?
Was pretty much corroborating my own impression. And this is like a little bit older. Like, do you know in which time frame this interview was conducted?
Probably in the 90s or around 2000.
Because like what he was saying, it was like the reputation was destroyed overseas, like in America. And it's pretty much my impression decades later from coming like on a neutral viewpoint coming into this. So yeah, and he seems pretty on point with his evaluation. But yeah, I think this is a pretty nice soundbite.
That's the guy who was there from the very beginning, and he knew all of the UFO groups, and it's still the same today. No one has crystal clear photographs of UFOs. Nobody has films. Nobody has metal samples. Nobody has fingerprints or footprints of aliens. Nobody, except maybe the military, and the military is never going to share it. So Billy Meier is the only person who has publicly available information. It's still the best in the world after 50 years, and every single other UFO podcaster or UFO group who's still attacking Billy Meier is responsible for covering up the truth because they're jealous. They don't know anyone who's meeting with aliens. They don't have any evidence that they can show. So all they can do is talk about stories of people who see little lights or imagine things in their mind.
Yeah, and it's like I said before, people who don't want to believe or don't want to have an open mind coming into this, and it's plausible deniability in both ways. So it's like, okay, all these videos, all this evidence, like he open sourced everything, so it must be a hoax. There are people coming there, and it's like there are so many debunks and people doing like super fan behavior, building models and recreating the sightings, and it's basically if you don't want to believe it, you won't believe it. And it's not, like you said, belief is not even the right word, because I'm attracted to quality information. And I think this case got so much quality information in it and showed me so many books and ideas where I can learn other stuff. And I'm big on the healthcare sector. I'm working in the healthcare sector. And this is another thing I want to ask you. It's a little bit off topic, but if you got any links, any information, pure health related stuff, because I think this is one big area which like in our current world is in a pretty bad state. But yeah, back to the evidence. I mean, you talked about Wendell Stevens. I think he's like a pretty special researcher in considering this case, because you already mentioned it. But I mean, he researched the case for years, and then in the end of the day, he was allegedly flying in a UFO by himself. And I think I get
not even important, but he brought back the evidence to the United States to be tested in the top labs in the country with the most expensive equipment in the world. And he brought the pictures and films to the NASA JPL photo lab in Pasadena, California. He brought the metal samples to the IBM, to Marcel Vogel with the electron scanning microscope. He brought the sound recordings to the U.S. Groton Naval Undersea Water Lab, Sound Lab.
Yeah.
And
yeah, this is what I mean. This is what I mean with plausible deniability. It's like if you see this, you see all this research, these old movies, and I don't know the names, you know the names of these researchers, where they're analyzing with the lie detector test, and they're analyzing the footage, analyzing the sound, analyzing the metal samples, and it all makes sense. And then years later, people got all kinds of stories. They say Marcel Vogel wasn't the real deal. He was not able to use the machine correctly and stuff like this. And so, oh, it's all fake. And then it happens in 5 or 6 different occasions. They say, okay, the photos probably were good. The older photos were pretty good. And then many UFO researchers these days, this is like pretty recent, they got the stance. Billy Meier took some real photos, and then the sightings got to his head, and then he lied and basically they said, oh, he needed to create more material. Like if you use empathy and you got an ET interaction, why you got the thought that you need to produce more material. This is like a malign thought, and you're projecting this thought onto like the contactee. And the more I researched this case, at the beginning I was sure, okay, this is a real case, and and how can people not get it? And then the more I'm going into more deeper into the case, I know if you're like a very rational person, you're gonna believe these debunks, because these debunks are more believable than the actual ontological shocking information that ET is coming here and Billy Meier is a contactee. So of course you will believe, like if you like a rational person and you're not, there was nothing like this on the planet before, like actually not in this time and space on the internet where everybody can get access to this. So another thing is like, if it's like, sometimes I'm saying, okay, let's think about if it's real. Let's think about if it's not real. I just want to say, if it's not real, then Billy Meier must be a pretty special person, because how is he the only contactee who creates this huge amount of case? And if you're just a normal hoaxer, how are all these other cases such a bad quality of a hoax, even in newer times? And this is the thing I don't get. And then you got all people say, okay, Marcel Vogel was crazy. And then he said, okay, lie detector test. I mean, lie detector test is it's debatable thing. It's not like real evidence, but 50 years ago, it was like an important thing. And it was just 1 out of 6 or 7 types of evidence. And yeah, I mean, where's the evidence for the Chris Bledsoe case? Where's the evidence for the Charles Hall case? All these cases are not even on the same level where you can have the discussion about fake evidence. This is like, if you bring fake evidence into the equation, you can either say, okay, a contactee produced fake evidence, or you say somebody else produced fake evidence to destroy a case. Because if the case is fake, you don't need to do that. So yeah, it's all, you can overthink this case and you can arrive at conclusions. So I think the best thing is to just keep an open mind and learn and study the case, and maybe you get in contact with more corroborations and you see for yourself.
Here's what happened after Wendell Stevens studied the physical evidence. We saw Bob Brown explain why all the jealous UFO groups attacked and torpedoed Billy Meier, because they were jealous and they didn't have anything for themselves to study. So they all got jealous. The second thing that happened was, after Wendell Stevens finished his investigation, after Gary Kinder wrote his book Light Years, after all the attacks started, something happened with the Billy Meier case where the contacts paused. There was a lot of infighting in the FIGU groups, and the Plejaren threatened to cut off their contacts. So there was a break in the meetings, and everyone researching it thought the contacts might be over, and they thought it stopped. So for a long time, people thought the contacts ended, and then for some reason, Billy Meier had to make up stories or make up things after that. Or when the wedding cake UFO pictures came out, they thought, oh, well, the other ones were real, but now the contact stopped and he had to make fake things to keep going. That could be further from the truth, because the contacts are still going on today. But I wanted to just briefly talk about the wedding cake UFO. The wedding cake UFO was the most polarizing to me when I was studying the case. It was one of the hardest hurdles to get over because it didn't really look like a real object. My brain couldn't process it. And when you read nothing but lies on the internet about it, you could say, well, maybe you could make this out of household items. But there's two key pieces of information that can prove that anyone can prove to themselves that it is a real large object and therefore a flying saucer from the Plejaren extraterrestrials. Number one is the old film that Billy Meier took of the wedding cake UFO, zooming in from across the field. And maybe we can watch this video together for a couple minutes of it zooming in and out. So this object is a couple hundred meters away on a hill, and Billy zooms in mechanically and then holds it on the object, and then he zooms back out. And you can also hear, other sounds in the background like birds and planes and Billy talking. And he also walks into the front of the camera and takes photographs with his camera. So we have photographs and film of a distant object. And then after he's done filming, he walks slowly up, taking pictures of the object as he gets closer and closer and closer and closer. So it's obviously a large, what turns out to be a 7-meter diameter ship that's filmed from hundreds of meters away, and he gets closer and closer and closer until he's just, 30 or 40 feet away, and he's looking up at it and he's taking pictures. So that's the first conclusive piece of evidence that shows it's a large object from far away. The second piece of evidence about the wedding cake UFO is the 74-page report of Raul Zahi. And what he did was he took measurements of all the buildings in Billy's property where the smaller wedding cake ship was landed or hovering above the Earth. Now, I think it was about a 3-meter craft. So we later learned that the wedding cake UFO came in different sizes. And it was like a 2.5 to 3 meter. And the next one was a 7 meter. And then the next one was like a 14 or 21 meter. I don't know, just bigger. There was small, medium, and large. And when the small craft was hovering in his driveway, basically, we see these reflective spheres. So what they did was they used computer software to compare the reflections of the building in the spheres. And they used mathematics to calculate the size of the ship based on the reflections. They also looked at pictures of the wedding cake UFO up in the tree. So it's on top of a pine tree, which is a full-size pine tree. And then we have branches in front of it. We have pine cones. And then Billy's sitting on another wedding cake UFO taking pictures of it from 50 or 100 feet away. So we're up in the air. We're looking at a wedding cake UFO right next to, on front of, behind a full-size pine tree. And you can just look at the pine cones to see the close ones and the far ones, and you can see that it's a large object. And then, from this, Raul Zahi calculates using trigonometry the size of the object and the distance and all that using mathematics. So if anyone's into math and science, this can physically be proven that it's a large object and not a model or a garbage can lid.
Yeah, let me add here, I just want to say, because you explained it so well, like talking about these debunks where people building like UFOs on a string and trying to recreate this, and there's like, I just want to mention some things here because I think it's fitting in pretty well. And it's like, maybe they put this UFO on a string and then they go away and film it and trying to recreate the sighting. And then they say, okay, you see the wind is the same distortion like the UFO. I mean, you have to think, you can always like do this in a framework which is based on like rationality. And then you say, okay, it's from the wind. You see, it's from the wind. It's moving like this. But in reality, there is wind up there, and it's an object in the air. It's not in space. So we don't know nothing about how this is all working. We got no baseline information, how like some anti-gravity drive performs on in our atmosphere and stuff. And so I find it's very remarkable. Like there are two things. They're like idealistic debunkers. They're actually conducting superfan behaviors, building the wedding cake UFO. Okay, you saw something and then you trying to build it. This is like not actually a debunk. This is like actually not saying that something is not happening. Like just because you're trying to recreate a picture, do it using another aspect ratio. And there's like two more things. The one is the Plejarians are saying, as far as I'm getting it, they can produce more hard evidence or more evidence because it would interfere too much with the human free will. And this is like exactly a very convenient explanation for the skeptics again, but it makes some sense. And there's like some logical hurdles on this case. You said hurdles. I think this is a great word, where you are confronted with evidence, like the one where it's surrounding around the tree, where people think it's like on a pendulum and all these things. And then, yeah, it's like logical hurdles, I would call it. Like these.
And then the tree disappears.
Yeah, and that's like it's hard to process, but I kind of get it now. It's like, for me personally, all this talk about evidence and videos and pictures, it's a big chunk of the case, and it's very interesting, but it's gonna end in nothing as well. Like if you don't believe it and you think it's not possible, you won't believe it, and you just think logical and believe at these debunks. It's like actually pretty interesting. But what you pointed out is very important, because many of these debunkers, which are also heavily religious and heavily embedded in Christianity, and it's like, in my opinion, the main drive for them to hate this case, because how can this guy say he was Jesus and Muhammad at the same time? They don't get it. They are not getting that this case is not about religion. It's the opposite. It's like, it's all or nothing. It's like either there's nothing or it's everything. So we got all these things: time travel, stealth cloaks. Like it's either the reality, there are advanced beings, they got technology and things we can only imagine maybe, or it's nothing. So it's like all or nothing in the sense that all these little things, they sound pretty incredible, but it all makes sense in a Korean picture if we got advanced ETs, which are so much advanced than us, that they got all these things. So many people think, oh, this is unbelievable, but it would be unbelievable if it's like only would play out in the earthly realms of imagination, because it's not located in the earthly realms of imagination. So yeah, getting a little bit off here, but
speaking of earthly realms, let's go into the entire universe and the history of the universe.
Yeah, I would love to.
This is really mind-blowing, and everything I've said up till now, I can prove with evidence and copyrights and photos and films and corroborations. Everything I'm going to say from now on, I cannot prove. I do not have a time machine. I cannot time travel. I have not met with any aliens, and they've never taken me back to show these things. So everything from now on, we have to use logical deductive reasoning to decide whether it's true or not for ourselves. I'm not trying to convince anyone, but this is what the Plejaren tell us, and their timeline of the universe is much older than we thought, and the timeline, I'm going to go over the timeline of extraterrestrials visiting Earth. And I can't prove any of this, but maybe slowly in the future, we're going to eventually prove all this to be true.
Yeah, so the next chapter, I would say, is like basically the real history of planet Earth according to an advanced observer, like in this case, the Plejaren, which are in contact with Billy Meier, just to make things clear. And now we're gonna, we talk about the real history of planet Earth, because this is like a problem, because we only got 2,000 years old books, and they're all highly fraudulent. So it's actually pretty great that we got some information which we can compare it to. And like you said, if we use reasoning and logical thinking, you will see if it makes sense or it won't make sense. And yeah, you can start, I guess.
So I would go on a limb and say that at least 50% of our history is false, or it's half true and half false. And our history books only start from 5,000 years ago. So I'm going to write a new history book for your listeners. And here's where I'm going to start. 46 trillion years ago. Because according to Plejaren, that's when the Big Bang happened. And that's when our universe first came into existence. 46 trillion years ago. And then a few trillion years later, higher life forms developed, which is humans. And then, you know, people have been living in this universe for trillions of years, and they go through this evolutionary process. And several billions of years ago, the Nocodemian spirit form came into being and achieved this high level of wisdom and basically figured out the best recommendations for human beings to live as human beings and be the best human being they can be and live in peace and harmony. And so there's been life all over the universe for a very long time now. Our universe has, if you want to picture an onion, it has 7 layers, and the only layer with stars and planets and people is the middle third layer. So um, there you have the core, and then you have 2 more layers inside of that shell, and then there's our layer of the physical universe with galaxies and stars and planets and people, and then there's 3 more outer layers, which are, and all those layers are energy, and you can call this all creation energy. And so humans live anywhere they could have developed on planets that are similar to ours, and we can talk about maybe the different types of humanoid aliens later. But if it's a cold planet, they're called one type of humanoid, and if it's a water planet, then they're gonna have a water environment, and if they're like us, they may be shorter or taller or very similar to us, just like the Plejaren, because the planet Era is almost exactly the same length of day, the length of orbit for a year, and the same size and gravity as Earth. So very similar conditions to Earth.
Yeah,
So
just one thing. I mean, what you might want to mention here is on our planet, it's told or it's teach that the humans derived from apes. And according to the Plejarians, it's like actually not the case. So we on our planet think we are deriving from apes, and we the first time the humanoid blueprint appeared on this universe, we got this hubris in us, and we think that's the case. But according to this information, that's not the case. We are pretty late. There were millions, billions of people and planets before us, and we are somewhere in the middle. And this planet is basically populated, in the timeline where many things happened before, including all these different races and all these different things. And yeah, you can go on, but I just want to mention this because the Plejaren are actually saying, as far as I'm getting it, the apes are basically were created through some interbreeding, same maybe with things like Bigfoot. I'm just gonna cut on some things here, but it's actually not the case that we are derived from apes. And the humanoid blueprint is pretty prevalent in the universe. There are other beings, other creatures, basically, I think everything you can imagine. And I just want to mention that real quick because I think this is a great misconception and this is like important to note. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm going to pull up the God's timeline and I'm going to go through that from the top to the bottom. So according to the information in the Plejaren contact reports, the first extraterrestrial people came to Earth 234 million years ago. So back when the dinosaurs were walking around, there were aliens visiting Earth. And then the next time point we have is about 25 million years ago. The Plejaren ancestors rediscovered Earth, and what happened was an object called the Destroyer came through a dimensional gate and dragged a piece of a planet along with it, and they followed this and eventually found Earth. So 22 million years ago, it says the red, brown, and white-skinned people first came to Earth, then left or died out. So there were different skin colors of humans, and they came and they came and went, or they stayed and they died out. Then we have 12 million years ago, several small groups of Plejaren ancestors had also already settled in some areas on the planet, but they all died out in the course of the next millions of years. So, according to the information, 5 to 15 million years ago, the first Earth hominids were developing. The precursors of humans on Earth was developing. And they found a skeleton or fossil in the Messel pit in Germany. And this creature was the creature that sort of eventually evolved over millions of years into what is the human being or the hominid or the Homo
Homo
sapiens.
sapiens, yeah.
So then now we have 3 million years ago, some more Plejaren immigrants came and mated with primitive earthlings. So already 3 million years ago, there are very primitive human beings, like if you want to think of a Neanderthal, and more modern Plejaren humans were coming, and they were close enough to mate with, procreate with primitive earthlings. Then we have 2.4 million years ago, the yellow race, which is what we know as the Asian race, moved from across the galaxy to the Lyra system. So now we have the Lyra system being inhabited, which plays a very important role. Then we have uh, another group which populated the Sirius star system, which is the brightest star in our sky. So now we have 389,000 years ago, or 387 to 389,000 years ago, sometime in there, Semyasa came to Earth with 144,000 human beings from the Nocodemian people and settled in the Gobi Desert. And then a man named Azazel created Ladon, the father of the dark or black race, with an Earth human female. Semyasa created Adam, the father of the white human race, and Sartael created Tet-El, the father of the red or American Indian human race. Giant humans up to 33 feet in height arise from the mixing of ET human and Earth human over several generations. Now, this is explained a little bit in the Book of Om, which people mistakenly refer to as the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is getting a lot of a mention online and social media now, but that's the old Ethiopian version, the Game of Telephone version, the 1,000-year-old version that's poorly translated.
I
The
mean, we
full
got
book of
it's new age. We got like Congress members going on Joe Rogan and telling
yes,
him about the Enoch thing. It's getting a little bit new agey, but it's actually, yeah. Go ahead.
it's very important. There is truth in it, but the full, complete, factual version you can find in Billy's Book of Om in canons 31 and 33. That is the real Book of Enoch, the full, and it talks about it names all these people, it names the sub-leaders, the 144,207 people, the fallen angels. They are basically Earth humans that came from Lyra Vega, and they came here and they were not supposed to mate with the Earth humans, but they made a pact, they made an agreement that they would, but they wouldn't tell the people on their home worlds. Well, they did. They created these races just the normal way with a man and a woman getting together, and it was also extraterrestrial females getting together with Earth males. So they all got together and sort of created tribes and children. And what happened was, since they had extraterrestrial DNA, for some reason, when they mated with the Earthlings, they were like normal size, they were our size, but some of the babies grew into giants. So we have this race of giants that came about, and this is explained in the real Book of Enoch. And the giants came and they caused big problems because they ate so much, and then they started fighting with the regular people. But they came about, but they're also regular people. And what happened was eventually the people from the homeworlds found out, and this was like what you could call a big, you call it like almost like original, well, not original sin, but this is where you get the term fallen angels, because they fell out of grace of the Ishwish, who was the king of wisdom, who was their ruler. So their ruler from their planets find out these people on this other planet broke a very important rule, and they interfered and intermixed and created new peoples with the natives, And this was sort of like their curse. And they were punished and they had to atone for their mistakes and promise to make up and come back in the future and fix what they broke, basically.
Yeah, I can
At the,
imagine somebody spinning off some Anunnaki story from this, to be honest. Like,
at the same time, you're only going to get the factual, clear, true information from the Playaran contact reports and Billy's books. But at the same time, so there were two groups of people, main groups coming to Earth. The people from the Sirius regions, the Sirius star system, and the people from the Lyra Vega star system. At different times over the last several 100,000 years, they were both coming on and off. And there were other groups from other star systems, but these were the main ones, okay, that had the biggest impact on creating the modern human race. Now, what happened on the Sirius star system was that these humans developed so highly in technology that they lost their physical prowess, their physical strength, their physical ability, and they became weak and defenseless from other aggressive races. So they genetically engineered a group of warrior humans to fight for them and defend them like bodyguards would, right? So they genetically manipulated humans and bred them into a species, and they manipulated their DNA, the MAO gene, and we call it the warrior gene. And they created this warrior race to protect them, and it worked. So they got these very aggressive, violent humans who were willing to fight and die and defend and be warlike and study war so they could defend this race of Syrians. Well, eventually these people bred out of control, and the Syrians said, we should eliminate these people because they're causing too many problems. Well, some of the Syrians who felt bad for them helped these humans escape to our solar system. They settled on Mars. They settled on a planet called Malona, and they lived and thrived there for a period of time. At this time, Earth was did not have the best atmosphere for them to breathe. So this probably happened hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of years ago. I'm not sure. But there were two other inhabited planets in our solar system, at least. During this time, there was a war on Malona. These two factions fought. A large ocean was diverted into a volcano, and the planet exploded, which left the asteroid belt today. Those people died. Now we have the asteroid belt as proof of that planet. The other people living on Earth also ran into problems. We don't have the full story, but we know that there was environmental pollution, almost like global warming. There was pyramids and structures and underground bases built, but there used to be flowing water and oceans on Mars. What happened was when Malona exploded, it rocked the orbits of the solar system, and there was also an object we know as the Great Comet of 1680. That's the destroyer that came from the other Lyra Vega dimension through a portal, and it was coming through our solar system every 575 years and causing various destructions like biblical floods and earthquakes and so forth every time it got close to Earth. Well, at one time, it came very close to Mars, and this may have coincided with the destruction of Malona. The orbits of Malona and Mars were switched, so um, Mars used to be closer. So Malona used to be closer, Mars used to be farther away, or vice versa. They switched. So the orbit changed. Something happened with the sun, the activity of the sun with this destroyer coming around, and there was big activity from the sun that may have stripped away the atmosphere of Mars. Somehow the atmosphere of Mars got stripped away, and the CO2 and everything and the oxygen soaked into the ground. So there's really a thin atmosphere left of Mars. The water dried up, the oceans dried up. They sunk into the ground. The water froze. It's underground now. We found ice, water ice under the surface of Mars. The oceans are gone. The rivers are gone. The people died, but some of them escaped to Earth, and they knew this disaster was coming, so they went from Mars to Earth. So they're living on Earth and they had to adjust. And then again, so we have more basically people from Mars and Malona coming to Earth. We have intermixing of these different races coming to Earth on and off. And then I'll continue with the God's timeline. 230,000 years ago, Azael comes. 194,000 years ago, Pelagon comes. Pelagon being an Ishwish, and there was tens of thousands of years of war, and then thousands of years of peace. And then 144,000 years ago, Pelagon the Militant. There's another world war on Earth. Only a few thousand survive. Some fled to other planets. His son was killed in combat, and then another Pelagon came after that, another guy named Yesos. So there were these giant world wars and times where civilization was built up and destroyed and built up and destroyed. Now here we get to 133,000 years ago, refugees returned to Earth. This was Armu or Armus settled in Armenia. Atlant, married to Caryatide. Atlant built the city of Atlantis. Lesser Atlantis was built by his wife Caryatide, and her cousin Miros was the founder of Mu or Lemuria. So these people were from Lyra. They came to Earth. They built Atlantis. They built Lemuria. They built Lesser Atlantis over time, and another civilization started up. 115,000 years ago, some scientists fled to Beta Centaurus, so there's life there, probably in a time-shifted dimension, not our dimension. 113,000 years ago, Aris and warriors returned for war, attack Atlantis and Mu. Aris II attacks India, Pakistan, and the Middle East. And this is where I think during these attacks, nuclear weapons were used because there's signs of that today. And this is where Aris started attacking Atlantis and Lemuria, which eventually led to Atlantis and Lemuria fighting themselves. 98,000 years ago, Zebulon had contact with Noah Kednasser and told to build the ark. This is where Noah comes in contact with an extraterrestrial, and this was about 100,000 years ago. Noah did live a very long time. He was very tall. He was 9 or 10 feet tall, and he lived at least several hundred years. But he had contact with an extraterrestrial, and he was told that tsunami was going to come. Not a rain flood, but actually a tsunami caused by an object coming close to the Earth again. So he built the ark, or had the ark built for him, and he had 140 something people on his boat, and they rode out the storm with the animals, and then they started civilization again in the Middle East somewhere. It didn't affect the whole world, but it affected the Middle East where they were. 73,300 years ago, the pyramids are built. Now, here we get to the new story in the news where scientists are saying, or one scientist is saying that the pyramids could be 20,000 years old or more. And everyone's losing their minds because everyone thinks the pyramids are just 5,000 years old. But the Clarence and Billy are saying that the pyramids are 73,000 years old. They were first built then, and then later on, about 12,000 years ago, they were falling apart and someone rebuilt them. And then another 5,000 years ago, they were falling apart and someone rebuilt them again. 26,000 years ago, the Asian races arrive on Earth. So if you go back 30,000 years, there were no Asian people on Earth. And then 26,000 years ago, there were. 13,500 years ago, Aris the Barbarian comes. We have Avram. We have the Ishwish Alatides, who came from Lausanne. And now we start getting into the biblical history here. 11,062 BC or years ago, we have Samyasa II fathered Adam II. And this is where the lineage of Adam starts in the Bible. Then we have 10,790 years ago, Arian splits off from Hyperborea and allies himself with Mu and Agartha. And then we have 9498 BC, Mu destroyed by Atlantis, and Greater Atlantis destroyed by Mu with an asteroid, and you did a video on that recently. Yeah. 3,500 years ago, a Lesser Atlantis is destroyed, and Santorini erupts in 1453 BC.
Yeah.
Then we have a succession of Ishwishes, who some might call gods. killing each other. We have Yahav murdered by Arusem, Arusem displaced by Jehovah. Jehovah is a famous god in the Middle East. Jehovah displaced by Kamagol. And then we have some extraterrestrials being worshipped as gods in South America, Easter Island, Tiwanaku, Piscu, Nazca, Saskatchewan. They were from Lyra, I believe. We have Viracocha, the tall guy. So we have the Easter Island, we have the long skulls, we have giants, we have extraterrestrial groups being worshipped as gods. All this is happening when our history basically starts, and that's when religions start.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a lot of information. And yeah, I just want to add a few things. I'm a little bit in the genetic stuff, and there was like scientists like Francis Crick and others who are actually proposed like ideas or theories that like the genetic soup on our planet and the duration on how like humans actually lived and breeded or like interbreed on this planet, interbred, the time doesn't even remotely it doesn't even is remotely enough time to create this variety of races and genes and all this together. And then we got like these, it's always gonna stood out for me, like that the Asian race is basically so new on this planet. And I think this just shows like there are some scientists who are pretty much onto the truth and they're even proposing stuff like this. And then you got like explanations. Like you said before, we can't prove this. It's like it's not really conjecture, but yeah, there's not like we can talk about evidence. It's more like rational thinking and extrapolation. What would make sense? And yeah, we got like if this is real, what you just said, we can say like that the reality is way more strange than most of the fiction novels and stories which are going around. Like it shows that all of these things, like these myths about giants and other things, are actually maybe got true roots somewhere. And yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Well, we have a lot of clues. We have the warrior gene, which is genetic modification according to the information in this case, which can be biologically proven that we have this thing called the warrior gene. The other thing is
but it's like not going to prove that we're not going to derive from apes or something, because it's just rationalizing with the information we got. Basically, Darwin, I never liked this whole Darwin stuff, and it just like I always ask myself, how if we like evolved from apes, how can we be here and we got apes at the same time, which did not evolve?
Billy makes an important point. He very much dislikes Charles Darwin, and because as a boy, Ta showed him things and told him things, including that Darwin filed monkey bones down to fit his theory and then presented his falsified evidence to scientists to come up with his theory. But the Playaran and Billy make very clear that we did not evolve from monkeys. We evolved from a distinct line of evolution into human beings, whereas primates like monkeys and maybe even Bigfoot are offshoots of our evolutionary line. So they kind of devolved from our tree, you could say. They are like a branch of our tree, but we kept growing straight. And we also have these giant megalithic foundations of rocks in South America and Easter Island and Saskatchewan and
yeah, I mean, an explanation for some of these things where people say, okay, this is like this rose granite, this pink granite, and it's like 2,000 miles away from the pyramids. I mean, it could be an explanation that like some giant was transporting the stuff. Like it's not actually not that this is the case, but it like if we like replay these scenarios with the new information we can get from the case, some things would make sense. But for the pyramids, just because you explained the pyramid thing and I asked at the beginning, I think actually the progress or the process of building these pyramids was like, it was actually 90% like human labor or something. And there was like some small extraterrestrials which use like sound or something to do like stone formations and whatever, just to point this out. But yeah, pretty interesting.
Playaran said that the pyramids were first built by extraterrestrials from the area of the constellation of Orion and Leo. They did use humans to help build them, but they also had technology like levitation technology and machines. And as far as moving 1,000-ton blocks, as in the case with like Baalbek, Lebanon, and the megaliths in South America, the Plejarians said they just had machines, and they may have been giants too. So giants with giant machines moving these blocks for them and putting them together like puzzle pieces, which we can't do today, was no problem for them because they either had technology or machines or levitation technology. And they say in a couple contact reports, just very simply, that they were made by extraterrestrials, they were made by giants, and they were made with high technology.
So yeah, we just finished the God's timeline, and we go to the next point, which is like basically about new information, universal knowledge, like things we did not know yet on our earthly realm, basically, and the Plejaren basically told us. And just general thing, I mean, I mentioned at the evidence part that the Plejaren are saying, we can't give you like HD 4K videos of UFOs because it was too intense. It's like actually not good for the free will. We've done enough, and if you want to engage in this stuff, you can do it, and it's okay, and we can't do more. And I think this is like the real cool stuff, like basically the eye candy, mind candy, how you want to call it, like basically stuff we all wonder our whole lives about, and they're actually telling us some interesting things. And we're gonna start with like a connection on the previous chapter where we talked about the timeline. And yeah, we're going to start with like a photograph of something very interesting. And yeah, take it away, Doogs.
So there is a document in some rich person's collection somewhere in England. So imagine a wealthy lord or nobleman in England with his mansion, and he has all these fancy paintings around his house and statues around his house and all these artifacts and objects from around the world. Right, someone that like Indiana Jones would meet, someone who pays Indiana Jones to go exploring in caves to bring back treasures. Well, somebody went into this man's house and I guess was an acquaintance of him and photographed this ancient parchment, this scrap of paper that appears to be very old and it's burned around the edges. They found it in Egypt, which we know has a lot of ancient tombs, and the Library of Alexandria was there and all these ancient scrolls. So they found this document and they photographed it, and it's in a language that no scientist on Earth can tell me what language it is. So it's in this written language. We'll put it up on the screen here.
Yeah.
And I will read
multiple versions.
There's multiple versions. I will read what it says in English here. It says, "It has been said in the prophetic sentence of the herald Enoch, he and his mission will be, as prophet, will be or live again in repeated lives in multiple reincarnations as most important herald of the teachings of the Spirit, as they are given in the laws of creation and brought and announced to the earth human on Terra by the guardian angels from the stars of Lyra and Vega. The herald Enoch says, I am the herald of truth. and in this mission I will be or live again in important times by the names Elia, Yezaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, Muhammad, Billy. And so I will serve among the human beings as a prophet 7 times before the change for the compliance with the laws and commandments of creation will take place in their thinking or convictions. So I will be or live in reincarnation in the new time when space will be conquered and when the guardian angels from foreign stars will appear once again. My reincarnation in that time will be as Billy and with the name Edward Meier, and I will dwell in a land of peace in the north, which will be called Schweiz or Switzerland. The human being then may listen to my voice, so he may be led into the light of the teaching of the Spirit.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, before you go ahead, I would say, I mean, they talk about reincarnations or new lives, personalities, maybe just to get some baseline knowledge out here. I mean, the Plejaren are telling us life and death. It's like basically day and night. You live your life, and then you're gonna die, and then you're gonna rest your soul. It's gonna rest for an amount of time, which is actually can be pretty different. And yeah, you're gonna get reborn in a sense, not your same body, same personality, but your soul is like this immaterial thing which can't live lives on its own. It needs the body basically. And so we have multiple lives, and every one of us, not just Billy Meier got this, every one of us got a soul, which is like a thing many people know from their intuition, but it's actually it's a pretty poor statement, but in our world, it's actually not accepted that we got a soul. The status quo is more, it's all chemical reactions and it's all, yeah, it's all just rational things and there is nothing. It's like basically black after we die. And that's why I guess so many people live their life in misery. And if you know, it's not the end. I mean, it's the end for this person and you should make the most of your personality and out of this life. But it's not going to be all black and that's it. So I think we should point that out because this is like fitting into the basic concepts which getting explained by the Billy Meier case, which are pretty resonating with me personally, and which was one of the most interesting things where I got the most synchronicities at the beginning, where I was digging deeper into the case, just to mention that real quick. And yeah, this is like the lineage. Some guy was telling me, well, why is there the name Billy and not Edward and stuff? And it's like some semantics. I don't know, man. And I mean, Edward was even mentioned in the thing further down. So I think it's basically yeah, pretty interesting document. And yeah, the Nocodemian spirit form, you can elaborate on this, what this basically is. And yeah, or go ahead with another thing.
This case is so important, and this is what makes it so much more important than any other alleged UFO case. This case explains the entire history of humans, of the universe, of our purpose in life, in the history of religions, the history of these gods and angels and prophets and heralds and people, coming down to teach us things. It just lays it all out perfectly here and fills in all of the blanks. This physical document is physical evidence of the previous heralds or prophets of the Nocodemian lineage. This is physical evidence of someone named Enoch or Enoch. This is what the book of Enoch is all about. This is who Enoch really was. It's all in the book of Om, written by Billy. It's all there. The history of the fallen angels and the heralds and the prophets and the times coming now and the 144,000. Everything you hear on these stupid UFO podcasts is just speculation. If they would just look at the source material, it explains everything in the greatest detail in hundreds of pages and thousands of pages, like perfectly clearly what happened. Literally, you don't have to guess. It just tells you straight up. I am Enoch. I am here from Lyra and Vega. I come with other people from other star systems, and I'm gonna teach the teaching of the spirit, the creation energy teaching. This is my job. I'm gonna live as Jesus, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, Elijah, Muhammad, Billy, and this is my job, and I'm going to come 7 times. And Billy is the seventh person to come with a new personality to do the same thing that the others did.
Yeah.
This is to teach us the most important information on the planet, the
Yeah.
most important information. This is like what we need to survive as a species. We are lost as a civilization. We are devolving. We're going backwards. And
Yeah.
until people, you know, don't figure out that, what we're doing right now isn't working, this is the truth, what I found to be the most useful, truthful, helpful information for an individual and as a society. This is why Billy is important to me.
Yeah, that's true. And I think what I've learned recently after a long thought process was like the religion thing, it's basically the crux of the whole story. Not like, oh, religion is great and we need to be super religious and stuff. It's more like the opposite. But it goes full circle with these debunkers who believe in Christianity, and this is like the structure in which they believe, and nothing else can challenge that. And then when you imagine, like, just even without the Billy Meier case, when some extraterrestrial race is coming here and we are having contact. And I think every alleged contactee, which got contacts or sightings or whatever, based on their religion, it's 100% fraud. Because why should an alien care about our earthly concepts? And if you arrive at like this overview of things, you're gonna see that the whole religion stuff is like basically what's slowing us down so bad. Because it's like all these religions, it was Mohammed, Jesus, and other people who like spreading basically teachings which got corrupted by other humans to basically make some extreme stuff out of it, heaven and hell, like some fiction stuff to control people. Like, you're gonna tell somebody there's heaven and hell, and at the same time you say you kind of can pay me and I give you some blessing, and you're not gonna go to hell. This is crazy. Like, this is like actually how all these concepts, all these pseudo-religious or all these pseudo teachings, basically, which are these religions, are funneling and collecting, soaking all these higher thoughts into this fake concepts. And yes, all these people's many people got great thoughts about all these constructs and structures, but they're getting false answers from religion. And I think it's like, if aliens come here and they don't care about some people we got here, but in reverse, it just makes sense that all these people, or many of these people with high religious influence, are basically coming from the same source, because the religions are pretty similar. It's just like different characters, different colors or something, but it's basically all the same. And it just makes sense that it's like, it's not because of the religious patterns, it's because these people are basically, people say, okay, you got contact to angels, but it's always the other way around. I think everything what's labeled angels and demons are basically, or more angels are more extraterrestrial. But a deeply religious person will always think it's the other way around. You will always think, okay, this is this big Christianity. It's all like millions of people believing this. My whole family is believing in this. And then you got some crazy guy talking about he was Mohammed and Jesus. And this is like this pre-installed concept. It's just not allowing people to think clearly, I think. And it's getting all explained in a neutral way in this case. And yeah, like, we can continue here, I guess.
So today is March 2nd, 2026. And right now there's a war going on in the Middle East, all over the Middle East and Iran. And the Christian Americans and the Jewish Israelis are bombing the Islamic Middle Easterners. We're still fighting over this after thousands of years because nobody knows the truth. They all have their own beliefs that they won't open up to and think logically or look at facts. We have like these historical documents that would bring everybody together, and instead everybody is fighting each other. And there, besides the Book of the Om, and besides that 8,000-year-old document, there are 3 books that would bring the entire world together if people would just look at them. And they are the Talmud Emmanuel scrolls written by Judas Iscariot, which Billy Meier found in a tomb in Old Jerusalem in 1963, and turns out to be the first gospel. And we have 25% of it, but it's good enough to set the Bible straight. The second thing we have is the Decalogue, Dodecalogue, which were the first 12 commandments given to Moses, not 10, but 12 commandments, which are completely different than what, we're taught today they are. And then we have the Goblet of the Truth. And the Goblet of the Truth is all of the teaching of all these prophets put together in one book. And these three books would bring all humans on earth together to give them a foundation of truth, of wisdom, of peace, how to live together, how to live individually, how to strive for evolution. And it has nothing to do with belief or paying your priests or your rabbi money. It has nothing to do with institutions. It's an individual learning process. It's the meaning of life. It explains what life is for. And not one single UFO podcaster is talking about this. They're just talking in circles about these old hallucinations of all these old cases and sightings in the sky and military people who saw something. But none of those people give you this important information.
Yeah, and I mean, it should be mentioned that because it's not religious. It's basically explaining all these things and explaining how religions came to fruition on this planet. And if you got cases like Chris Bledsoe, which are basically structured in a way that he's like a normal guy who got like contacts with some
worshiping a holy image.
He's like getting messages from these ETs, allegedly this white woman, who are all playing into this Christianity stuff. So the more and more there gets like some audience gets curated, which are deeply religious, and this UFO thing is just like, I don't know, it's just like to creating fake cases and to just, I don't know, make it religious. But I think it's exactly the opposite. Every religion can't be true. It's like, but people think,
same time.
Yeah, it can't be true at the same time. And in the end, it's nothing of this is really true. We got all these little things, I would say, like quality data in a way, like we got Emmanuel and we got all these explanations which make sense that it came to this point. But in the end, like if an alien ship is gonna land and they come out and say, give me a Bible, we're gonna read the Bible, and this is all like it was. This is like so ridiculous. And this is like I think this is the main reason we don't know about the stuff. We know about the stuff, but we don't know it on the mainstream. It's not gonna get broke down on the mainstream by the power structure. Trump is not coming out and gonna say this is real. The only thing he's gonna do, he's coming out and he's gonna tell a story which is playing into his narrative for some reason. It's not gonna be to get us the knowledge, which is gonna destroy all these power structures and not even giving us maybe clear information, and which was gonna debunk all these false and corrupted politicians maybe. And this is like there's nothing to gain from the power structure in admitting the stuff, admitting a real Billy Meier case or admitting real extraterrestrials. It's just going to destroy the whole thing which got built up over decades, hundreds of years. I mean, I think the Christianity thing was like 189 or something, where the thing was like basically corrupted. And yeah, I mean, you talked about the commandments. I think like
they changed the name of the main character.
Yeah.
The Bible gets the main character's name wrong. And I want to say two things. Every major religion has origins with extraterrestrial contacts.
Yeah.
Every ancient civilization had some contact with extraterrestrials. And the other thing I want to say is, if you're in a religion, you're not a bad person. You've just been taught partially true, partially false information.
Yeah, and that's what many people who like very spiritual and very like of intuition based, they think all the answers are in religion. And like I'm not gonna shit on every religion, and it's like there are good aspects, solidarity and stuff, and it's not a bad thing, but it's like the religion is so intertwined, you said it, with all these conflicts, and it's so heavily intertwined with our current reality. It's not just, oh, you go Sunday, you go to church. It's like all these wars because people got different inner concepts they believe in. And sometimes the only solution is to stop all this. I mean, like it's a long beta test for religions. We got this thousands of years and it's all going bad. We got more wars every day. It should be, oh, we was these primitive apes and now we these smart humans, but we're still doing the same shit every day. And this case basically got the tools and got the information to, debunk all this fake stuff. And even like, just playing devil's advocate here, even if there's not everything is real in this case, it's going to show so much positive things. And so much like things where you can, like the health thing, the spiritual thing. It's like, even if it would be fake, it's like a better scenario for our planet in which we like right now. Like, I'm just saying this because religions did not prove themselves over the time. This is
Let
why
me tie in what's going on today with what was talked about thousands of years ago. There are people today fighting in the Middle East, right? We got these three major religions fighting each other. And there are, you could say, prophecies or beliefs about the second coming of Jesus or the end times, right? Or the third temple being built. There are ancient writings in the Billy Meier contacts that talk about what's happening today. And they talk about how this Middle Eastern war could destroy everything. And they talk about, and there are people with these beliefs that think they're entitled for this to happen because their religion says it's going to happen. But these are actually distorted teachings based on the original writings of Enoch.
Yeah.
And there it is written in the Book of Om that extraterrestrials could intervene against the powers of the West, which is America, if this war goes too far. So there is actually a real possible threat of extraterrestrials, or you might say interterrestrials, or whoever they are, whoever the foreigners are, somebody might intervene against the Western powers if it gets out of hand.
Yeah, and I just want to mention one more thing here, and that's like the question where I done this interview with Mike Whelan, where I was asking, what is the motive for the Plejarians? Why are they doing this? Why are they helping us, basically, trying to make things better here? I think we should ask this question as well. And the explanation is like just some basic information I got. It's like basically our history is somewhat intertwined with this, like God's timeline you just mentioned, coming here, like basically manipulating our genetics to serve for like this warrior stuff, essentially. And as far as I'm getting it, you can correct me here, but as far as I'm getting it, it's like they made some mistakes, and like I would say that the scale is not even, so they come here and conducted this mission. Like it's basically a mission to to give us this information, because many people would ask why they're coming here and doing this. Why it's like, isn't there something prohibiting us from or some rules, like universal rules in a true sense, which are prohibiting higher advanced aliens to come on a primitive planet and distort or like basically change the destiny. But it already happened. So I think they come here and like basically make it, like, you know what I'm getting at. But it's like I also learned that the Plejarians himself are learning from the Nocodemian spirit form. And I think it was Mike who was even saying they're like learning way more stuff than we do, like way more teachings. I don't know if you got something on this.
On the planet Era, the Plejarian had this ancient library they could not access until Billy opened it.
Going full circle here, yeah.
Billy also has written thousands of pages of spiritual teachings for them, the Plejaren. The Plejaren are millions of years more advanced than us, and they see us like their little siblings. We are blood related, we are relatives. They came here, they saw us evolve, and their job as advanced human beings is to protect life throughout the universe. And they see us going on the wrong course. So they came here to correct the course. So the Nocodemian spirit form came here to correct the people going off course, to give us the truth about life in the universe. The Plejaren came here to initiate the idea that we are not the only humans in the universe or in the galaxy. We have to, most people do not think, most people think that we are alone, and they don't have proof that we are not alone. If everyone on Earth understands that we are not the only humans in the galaxy or the universe, then everything changes and our perspective opens up. And then it opens up to other ideas and other truths and other realities and other human beings who live on other planets just like us, who evolve like us, and are going through a long-term process of evolution. If we do not change our ways, we will destroy this planet. We almost did it once before. And nuclear weapons have been used multiple times in this planet's history. And civilizations have come and gone because they destroyed themselves through war. There's only a few hundred people who are really close to this Billy Meier case on the Earth who are actually doing something to save this planet from total destruction. We have overpopulation, we have nuclear weapons, we have AI, we have robots, we have laser weapons, microwave weapons, we have biological, chemical weapons. The weapons manufacturing on this planet just builds things to kill us.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
killing ourselves through overpopulation. We are destroying this planet. We're hollowing it out. We're sucking the oil out. We're polluting it. We're poisoning it. We're poisoning ourselves. We're getting cancer. We're getting AIDS. We're getting COVID. We're getting nanoparticles. We're getting microplastics in our blood.
Autism. Yeah.
Autism. Everything. The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
The
And I think,
government are giving us the truth that we need to survive and actually live as human beings instead of living in a hellhole, which is being taken over by computers and these technocrats and these tech bros who are
yeah,
trying
it's
to
going
control
in
the
the
planet.
direct in the opposite direction, because like it's going full circle again, like you said. Like I think these religions are prohibiting us. If we're like living on a planet where everything is neutral and ETs just land and said, okay, it's this and that and this and that, and we just accept it, this is not possible on this planet, because every religion and all these power structures and these elite scientists which think they got everything figured out in the universe, at the same time admitting that we only know so less, but they got everything figured out and everything is impossible. Like it's basically, if there's nothing, like the more that I think about it, if they are not intervene in the way they do with this mission, it's going to be, I think we are at a point, without help we won't get it together, maybe.
Think
And
about that 8,000-year-old document. I can't prove that it's 8,000 years old. I can only say that the document exists and that it's in a language that I can't understand. But if it says what they say it says, that means that no Codemian came here from another star system with advanced knowledge and advanced people, knowledge that's billions of years old. And that knowledge is brought here,
yeah,
and everything that Billy has written is practical, it's logical, it's rational, and it sounds very wise and very smart, and it works because I've been studying it for 13 years and it makes sense, and you can see that it's very high quality knowledge. So
yeah,
why wouldn't you, if you're listening to this, why would you listen to one more podcast about a blurry light in the sky or someone imagining things with no specifics? This has specific, detailed information. Yeah, I see.
we got UFO sighting, we got them all in the room. Like you see, I can do the same stuff like Chris Bledsoe, man,
You can Photoshop that and make a fancy video out of it and get 1 million views, but like other people do, like Third Phase of the Moon or whoever who make a living off fake UFO
Yeah,
videos. But it's
yeah,
not going to teach you one thing. It's just a distraction. Stop
yeah,
being distracted. Go to the source. Go to the Pleiadian Contact Reports. Go to Billy's books. It's all for free. Everything you can find for years and years is free. It'll teach you the history of humans. It'll teach you our place in the universe. It'll teach you our place on this planet. It'll teach you how to save our planet from destruction, which we're in for a bad couple hundred years. I'm going to tell you, it's only going to get worse because
yeah,
people have already given their their self-responsibility over to computers and AI, and they don't know how to live in harmony with nature. They don't know how to live as a healthy human being. They don't know how to treat themselves and other people. They're missing the spiritual and they're going for beliefs only. They're swallowing the beliefs, which cannot be digested because beliefs aren't logical. They're contradictory. All of the religions of the world contradict each other, like you said. They can't all be true when they all oppose each other. We're going to war right now. It's escalating. It's causing mayhem all over the world economically. It's causing more hatred. It's causing less peace. And it becomes an individual task because we can't stop the wars and we can't stop the destruction, so all we can do is change ourselves.
yeah. That's right, man. Well said. Yeah, I mean, you answered the question where I was saying, why are they helping us? And I remembered Mike was saying the same thing. They're like intergalactic doctors, basically. They're so high evolved that they can look out after other people who got problems and basically help them. That's like basically a simple explanation, simple answer to the question, but I think it was pretty well explained. And yeah, two more things. Like there's some religious confirmation, I will call it, because like the Pleiadian said it. If they got millions of people or even just a few hundred people, I think it's enough. And they all believe the same thing. It's actually creating some power. It's actually creating some intensity. If they got millions of people believing in a thing, even if it's right or wrong. And that's why I think sometimes religious miracles or something happens. I would say there are like these experiments with random number generators where people do these things, not necessarily in a religious framework, but they can affect these things. So in other words, saying like if you got a strong not belief, but if you got many people thinking about the same thing, you can actually manifest a billion people. Yeah, and that some people feel this energy maybe, and then they think religion is real, but it's basically misdirection of energy. I would say.
Something that, let's go back to the pyramids for a second.
Sure, yeah.
When Billy went down and saw that giant UFO 1,200 meters below the pyramid in a giant cavern, that UFO was from a group of extraterrestrials. And there were extraterrestrials called the Giza intelligences, or the Bathath, who were like a splinter group of the Plejaren, or either the Syrians or the Lyrians, the Vagans. They were a splinter group. They were maybe only about 100 of them or so. They were very old. But from that base, deep below the pyramids, they tried to influence, and they did influence certain world leaders and people. I don't know how they influenced them with mind control or telepathy. They influenced world leaders and religious people with the aim of controlling the world leaders with their false religious narrative. So these people under the pyramids were trying to persuade and influence certain religions in order to control humanity. Those people are no longer on Earth. They either died or they were arrested,
deported.
However, their influence still remains. And like you were saying, if you have a billion people or more, billions of people, most of the world has a religious belief. If they're all building these religious thoughts, the Plejaren said it formed this kind of like energy layer around the Earth. And these religious thought energies are very powerful and can physically affect people, and do physically affect people and can influence people. And you have to be very strong with your mind and your self-discipline and your thoughts to not get sucked into these energies and be influenced by them. And there have also been physical attacks on Billy's properties and manipulations of computers and his computer data when he's typing, and objects being manipulated. So this is so strong that it can affect people, and Billy is attacked by these energies. But for the rest of us, we have to be on guard and just not be a slave to beliefs. Do you want to live your entire life in half-truths, or do you want to live your life knowing the full truth? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and all these people who got power and money, as not all these people, but many of them, people like Peter Thiel and all these like weird people who they don't want to die, like they want to be like 200 years old, and it's all like Neuralink in the brain, and it's going all in the wrong direction, and it's like pretty peak that we got.
Billy Meier wrote about artificial intelligence in 1949.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what can you say? There's so much stuff. It's like at some point you must ask yourself, if you're researching this case, like, is this guy an expert in everything? Like, there are like in so many different areas, like maybe a broken clock is right twice a day or something, but you can't hit on so many things, like space stuff, health stuff, geological stuff. Like it's going even in these other directions, like numerology and all these like techniques, meditating, pyramids. They're giving so much information, and some people, skeptic people, say he copied this from like Sanskrit stuff. And I mean, you need to ask yourself, maybe the Sanskrit stuff is from my intuition here, from my feeling, I think the Sanskrit stuff is like the most profound of all the, I would say, religion. It's not really a religion, but I think it's pretty on point. And you see there like some, I would say like, it's a little bit, it's aligns with these Sanskrit teachings.
The Sanskrit teachings were influenced by the ancient Plejaren teachings.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it goes full circle. This was I was saying at the beginning, that either it's all or nothing. Either everything is implicated and somewhat connected to these things, or it is inexistent. And we more and more learn that there are many things which are getting corroborated. And yeah, we now talked a lot about the religious context and stuff. And maybe we, like you said about things around the planet, maybe we talk about the storage banks next. And
I wanted to say one more thing about
sure.
Artificial intelligence. If anyone's listening, go search that term in Contact Report 874 and 901 and 925 or 926. There's some brand new information. None of it's good, but it's coming and we need to prepare for it. So we could talk about other things around the world now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talked about, like, the segment was called like the things we did not know yet. I mean, like I said, you already cut on this with the thing with different incarnations from the Nocodemian spirit form, and we all got this stuff. Like we all basically, it's not. I mean, I think there's not one person on this planet who got their first bodily experience, and maybe we can go a little bit into this. I mean, how's this all structured? Like basically, if you live your first life on this planet, like I'm going to put the graphic on the screen and I put it in like 5 of my videos, but I think it's so interesting where you see the different stages, and it's more of the time it's 7 stages, and then there's like all these like informations how the spirit is progressing, and we are basically at the verge of learning how to use knowledge, and at the verge of going like technological into like the space traveler area. And I think it's a pretty nice, like, I don't know, coincidence that the Billy Meier case was coincidentally running at the same time, like basically ending, like it's not ending. The teachings will be learned for many 100 years, and you already told how important all the stuff is. But basically, we can go into that later, but they say 2029, the contacts will end. And it's basically right around the corner that we got so much AI and tech that if there was a new contact case, UFO case with videos and pictures, we will not be able to discern it because we got all this AI stuff. So I find it really peculiar that the case happened right in front of this great change. I mean, we are right now approaching this. It's going to be pretty wild. If I think 10 years in the past, the world was pretty different from technology and AI. Now everybody got chatbots, generative AI, and even at work.
The world that Billy begins to describe what it'll be like 100 years from now is horrifying.
Yeah, and I think this case, if like the Billy would be born in 2037, 100 years later, the case would not work. I think it would need to be like a different receipt, like basically it's not with all this AI stuff. Everybody would say that you can create all these videos in 5 seconds with some advanced AI generator, and it's not even got this compelling effects. Like people say, these pictures are the best pictures. And I think so. It seems like it was well planned by an entity which knows way more about our history and how the thing's gonna happen than we are, because we are only getting 100 years old.
Billy knows the future up to the year 3999.
Yeah, and I mean,
and beyond. And he writes about some of the things that are going to happen in Contact Report 251.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about multiple lives in the human spirit form now. So Billy has been giving new information about this, about the creation energy teaching and about the creation energy form. And he just wrote a new book about the 7 types of creation energy. So he's starting to redefine, use newer terms and redefine and explain that reincarnation is really not the best term, and it's not the term we should use, and it's not.
I think it's a revitalization. Is it?
Yes. So, like you said, the spirit form goes back and forth between the physical world and the beyond, or the spiritual realm, the yen sites, or the other world, and it kind of goes back and forth. And as it comes into a new body, there's always a new personality, and it's always evolving. With every life, we gain experience and wisdom. And this is stored in what's called the storage banks and the consciousness block, and this is stored for all times. But when we die, it only keeps the positive stuff. It only builds and builds and builds with each life, the positive, new, good experiences, so you can move further and further into the better and better, up that ladder, up that evolution chart. So we start at primitive thought like cavemen, and then we move on to the next level, and then we move on to the next level, and we're kind of like right at that lower middle stage where we just start space flight and start, flying out into the solar system, and eventually, probably in another 1,000 years, we're going to be flying into the galaxy, like outside the solar system. And, we learn the utilization of spirit knowledge. And the whole thing that all of these UFO cases miss is the spiritual teaching or the creation energy side of it. We all know there's a physical life because we have bodies and we have our house and our car and our job and our friends and the nature that we look at. So that's the physical, that's what we can see with our senses. But the Billy Meier case explains the spiritual side. And this is the underlying energy of everything in the universe. This is what the scientists are looking for, like the God particle, the dark matter. What is the dark matter and dark energy? Where does that all come from? What's smaller than the atom, right? What's smaller than subatomic particles? This energy, this creation energy ties everything together, and it makes us basically immortal because we're connected to the whole universe. We're connected to all living things. And this is where Semyasi talks about in Contact Report 10 about the basic foundation of the spiritual teaching. And Earth humans have no idea about this spirituality, and it's all distorted mumbo jumbo from religions. But the Plejaren directly, explicitly, clearly explain the spiritual part of life, and that we don't live just once, we live consecutively over and over and over. And for people on Earth, we've lived at least 5 million years since we were primitive people, and we're evolving, and our bodies are evolving, our spirit is evolving, and we're gaining more knowledge and wisdom. And obviously, there's going to be hundreds of more years of our evolution, but eventually on this planet, we can turn this planet into a paradise. And I'm not going to blow smoke like all the other UFO people do and saying all these miracles are going to happen and we're going to transcend and ascend and all these stupid things. This is going to take like thousands of years.
And it won't happen with some work. There's not going to be some present falling from the sky. It needs work.
Exactly.
There's nothing, no wonder will happen. Oh, everything, we're living in paradise. It's all going to be great. There's some work and there's some healing process, and it's going to be painful and it's going to be bad. And I think many people will actually die in that process because like the overpopulation playing into this and the bad state we are having on this planet. And forget
and
about
as long as there is religion and overpopulation, that's just a recipe for disaster, and we can't flip the switch. It's going to take hundreds of years to reverse it. So according to the latest Plejaren information, on the last day of 2025, December 31st, there were 9.65 billion people on this planet. So if you're listening to this, there's more than 9
you're still
people,
there.
and last year people were added to the planet. So every year there's more than 100 million people on average being compounded and added on to what we already have, and we're approaching 10 billion people. And at some point it's going to keep growing, and then everything's going to collapse. So people need to be aware of this.
Just a comparison, I mean, the planet of the one habited planet of the Plejarans, they got like 550 million, and they said it's like pretty much the optimal thing. So we basically got 20 times the amount on this planet, almost 19 times for 18 times. So and every time this gets mentioned, I mentioned it before, every time this gets mentioned on shows like Joe Rogan, they said, oh man, it's the opposite. Look at South Korea, look at Japan. And it's not representing how the world is actually going when you talk about two countries, and it's 99% of the rest is actually exploding. And you can do simple math. If you ask your granddad when was he born, and you Google how many people were on the planet in 1940 or something, it's going to say like 2 billion. And then where I was born was like 7 billion, 6 billion. And now we are almost at 10 billion. I'm like 33 years old. So where should this go? Like, I was always asking my granddad, like, where you was living, it was like there's like 20% of the people on the planet like today. How can this not affect everything? Like,
Wow.
it's like it makes sense. And another thing I was going to mention is, considering the storage banks, it's actually resonating so much with me because two things. I think, like, if you got new kids born and they're like super smart, or like Wunderkind in German, you know, like people with special abilities or special traits, it just makes so much more sense that it's not like a genetic rolling dice, which was basically forming this. It was like the storage banks. It's like basically getting impulses. And I think in the future, if this is all going to be confirmed at some point, I think people are going to do videos and talk about downloads and impulses. Because I think, I mean, this is just conjecture from me. Like, I think there are different aspects of the storage banks multiple people can access. And I think you got maybe some personal stuff, and you got like, this is like all this, I don't know how the effect is called, but in sports,
the planetary storage.
Yeah, in sports, this often happens when somebody breaks a record a few months later. Like, the record was not broken for 20 years, and then this people arrives at the same level, breaking this record, breaking the same record, or like with Tesla and the other American guy who was like basically for the radio stuff, they basically got the same idea at the same time and nobody else got it. So I think you can actually work on some things, stimulate the storage banks in some way, get something out of it, put something in, and other people can download it. Like, basically people who are connected to the same thing, basically connected to a same personal mission, or like on a close path or something. Doesn't matter where they are around the world. It sometimes feels like this, where you got some weird synchronicities when you, in the age of the internet, you listen to people and you're thinking about the same stuff, and then you came to a conclusion or something, and then people got the same thing a day later or something. I think it works like that, and it makes sense, and it would explain so many things, like so many things we can't explain, like people who are like so special in like quotation marks, like early in their life, and it would just explain. It's not all just, I think it's a mix out of everything. It's a mix out of, like, if you're the mother, like your mother is pregnant and taking all kinds of meds and is unhealthy, I think you got a lot of more struggle into the connection with your soul and your body. And we all think it's all just in this earthly realm, and we got actually no clue about all the spiritual stuff. And yeah, like I said, where's this actionable intelligence in all these other cases? Even in hoaxes, like, I don't know any hoax, like, which would be even like trying to present information on the same level or scale. So yeah.
Billy wrote a lot of information on exactly what you're saying. And what you're saying is true. There are personal storage banks and planetary storage banks, and sort of a collective subconsciousness that you can tap into. Now, you need a healthy body, you need a healthy mind, and this can be done through meditation. And a lot of it's done in our subconscious or unconscious, where we don't realize what we're doing it. But this also ties back to our previous lives and our previous incarnations. There is something called fine fluidal spiritual energies, and Billy has written a book on it. And basically, it explains that thoughts have energy and vibrations, and every thought we have is sent out into the ether. And the more power we put in our thoughts, the more likely we are to make it a reality. So thoughts affect people, the environment, all these invisible energies affect you, and the thinking of everyone affects everyone else. And also, these thought energies are stored in our jewelry and our clothes and
Crystals.
our crystals and our homes and our buildings and our bones. In the most of it is stored in our bones. So when we die, the energies remain in our skeleton. So according to Billy, we can mentally access these stored energies in our previous lives' skeletons back thousands of years, which is why you should not get cremated. So he also explains ghosts. And this is the book all about fine fluidal energies, or all around the fluidal craft. So he wrote a book about this, and it's the only book in the world that explains ghosts and these telepathic paranormal energies. And he explains what causes all these paranormal energies and ghosts. So let's say there's a haunted house or a cemetery where somebody sees a ghost, a ghostly apparition, which is like a cloudy image of a person-like figure, right? Haunting a house. It's very hard to prove this, but somebody actually did it in a scientific experiment where they had this glass box full of CO2 and they had this object and they were able to reactivate these energies and cause this ghostly silhouette inside this gas, this smoky gas where you can actually see it form, and they filmed it. But ghosts are caused by the reactivation of these stored fine fluidal energies. So it really only happens where there was like a traumatic or very strong energetic thing taking place. So let's say there was this old house where somebody was tortured or murdered, or there was a very traumatic experience. And this strong mental energy got stored in the buildings, in the beams, in the walls, right? It got stored in the house for over a long period of time. That person dies, but the energy is still there. Then they, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, they reincarnate, or their spirit form goes into beyond, and then it comes back into a new human being with a new personality. And somehow their energy is triggered again, which reawakens the stored energy in that haunted house, and it causes this physical visual apparition, this ghost. Ghosts are caused by stored fine fluidal energies that are created by humans.
That's very interesting. I mean,
And
it's like,
this can also, he also explains where like haunted houses can make objects move and make noises and things like that. And basically, a haunted house, doing creepy things, it's all from these invisible, fine fluidal thought energies, because there is so much that scientists can't detect this. Scientists cannot detect fine fluid energies. They can't detect our spirit form. They can't detect our thought forms. They can only detect brain waves right now, but they don't
yeah.
know where the brain waves go. They don't know how far they go. And Billy explains telepathy, spirit telepathy, telekinesis. He even did some demonstrations of his mental powers in the kitchen with witnesses present, and other things. And he used telepathy and telekinesis with witnesses present. So,
Yeah, can I interject real quick,
yeah.
because I think it's very important. I think all of these people, like the Pleiadian, are saying there are like some people on the planet, like 5 people or a handful of people, which are so spiritually evolved. And I think they're somewhere like in the mountains, some monks or whatever. And you don't see these people going around like Uri Geller and making money from this stuff, because I think when you reach this spiritual level, you're not gonna chase these low frequency goals. And that's why people don't flex with this stuff, basically. And yeah, what was the other thing? I already forgot it. It's not good. Um,
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
gone. It's gone. It's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, there are people who meditate, like, Tibetan monks, and I'm sure they are more attuned. I think everybody has a little bit of sense of
Yeah,
telepathy.
I
Go
got
ahead.
it
I
back.
was gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a very general thing, which is like if we're running around and look at stuff with our eyes, we already know on this planet there are atoms, there are viruses, there are things we can't see, but they're still there. So not everything we are seeing right now it's like there's deeper explanations to these things. I think this is like a thin extrapolation, but you can say there's like so much stuff we can't see. So if we think the atoms are everything and we can't see the smaller stuff, smaller in the sense of fine matter, like we don't know what dark matter is, we don't know all these things, it would just explain that there's so much more to learn, and all these things, like, which are not visible, are still there. I don't know how to put it right now, but it's like,
Let me talk
yeah,
about a couple of things that are related to what you're
sure,
saying.
yeah,
The Schumann resonance,
yeah,
the moon going around the Earth, coronal mass ejections from the sun, right? Electron flux, the magnetic field of the Earth, the wandering of the poles. There are so many energies around us, around this planet, besides the thought energies that affect us, even like maybe earthquakes on the other side of the planet, that shake the Earth. But like you said, the Schumann resonance, telepathic powers, things that happen in our subconscious, things that happen, natural disasters that happen on the other side of the earth that obviously affect um, people. And the 11 and a half day cycle of our our mental energies and physical energies that was written about by Wilhelm Fliess and Carl Jung, which
Yeah.
Billy talked about. And there's only been one scientist on this planet so far who proposed this 23-day up and down cycle of both physical and sort of, I guess you could say, mental or spiritual energies. We all, every single one of us, are affected by a permanent, never-ending 23-day cycle with 11 and a half day peaks and valleys for both our physical body, like our immune system, our energy, and our mental energy and our emotional well-being. And
And if you
nobody
know,
knows this. Nobody in the world is
and
talking
if you
about it.
know and can utilize this, then we got not such things as depression. If you wake up one day and you're just feeling like shit, and you think, okay, I have a problem. But if you know these cycles, I mean, women got some cycles which they know about, and I think
Right.
men got similar cycles. I think it's even pretty close to what you're saying. It's like 20 and 10, something along those lines. You got like 10 days where you're like peaking on some cycle, and then you got 20 days where you're basically recuperating or something. And I think, yeah, it's all just rhythm and cycles, and it's just everywhere. It's like the simple things like day and
The
night, hot and
zodiac.
cold, and yeah, the zodiac thing. And we got like all these, like, it's very polar on this. It's always two things on the spectrum. They are changing, and this is like reality. This is like basically the matrix. Like when if you want it, it's not what's happening. It's basically the black and white layered over the thing is creating the field of potential in which we are right now. And yeah, it's also interesting. You talked about ghosts. I got magic right here. Do you want to? I mean, I think my interpretation of magic is just it's mental endurance. I mean, there's so many different forms of magic, but maybe we're gonna look at this clip in the video. Maybe I cut it out. We're gonna see it. But there's like one small clip of David Blaine. I posted this in this Discord thing. I don't know if you saw it in the group. And there was like where Will Smith and his wife was there, and both people closed their eyes, and they're standing on yeah, standing opposite to each other. And David Blaine is touching Will Smith's shoulder, and she just feels it like on the other side, but he did not touch her. And I think this is like some stuff where some people, maybe it's pretty interesting that we got like people doing this for like entertainment, but I think some of these things maybe are deeply connected to some real stuff. And I think if you're really connected with another person, you're really in sync, you can do these things. Basically, you can feel stuff. And I think, is there something said about magic? I mean,
Billy is the only person in the world who clearly explains what the pineal gland is and does. He's the only one in the world who explains what telepathy is, what paranormal powers are, our seven senses, not five senses. He explains the seven senses. He explains the spirit form, the thought energies, the fine fluid energies. He's the only one in the world who knows about it on this planet. And he's writing about it and telling people about it. If you ever want to know about anything paranormal, search for it in the Polar and Contact reports or pick up one of Billy's books on the fine fluidal energies. He'll explain ghosts, he'll explain telekinesis, he'll explain it's mental powers, it's powers of the mind. He's done certain tricks and manifestation things and telekinesis things with witnesses present, and he doesn't do it anymore now because he's too old. But he's done it with people there, and he's demonstrated it to people, and he's been taught by the Polarian to do it. And there's a lot we don't know, but it's going to take a very long time. I don't think it's super important, but it is something that's in the background
yeah,
because we won't be able to do it for hundreds of years. We won't be able to
yeah.
develop those powers for hundreds of years.
And
So
that's good. I mean, and look how it's going on this planet. We don't need like directly read somebody's mind. This is like, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be absolutely horrible if we got these abilities right now. I mean, it's just logical. If you like evolve and evolve as a species, evolve spiritually, technologically, and you arrive at a state where you don't do dumb shit, you can have the stuff. You can't have this stuff if you like got like 10K atomic weapons on this planet, and it just makes sense. I don't even want to have this here, man. It's gonna be so bad. So it just makes sense that if you evolve your spirit, you learn abilities which manifests more in reality. I think it just makes total sense. And of course, this is not so important, but I just think it's like some questions where we know not much about, and Billy is giving context and information for these things. And yeah, you're like literally the librarian here, because I was just like talking about magic, and you
it
gave
opens
a good
the door.
answer. And just I want to say, I'm going to link a lot of stuff below. This is going to be a trend on these videos. I'm always trying to get the description to 5K symbols. So it's going to be no problem, because I'm going to link a few contact reports and a few other articles where these things we talk about getting, you can get more information on.
These topics open the door to our future potential, but we need to get back to nature and meditation and studying the spiritual teaching or creation energy teaching, which no one else is writing. But remember, Billy is only the 7th person on Earth who's been tasked with this job. And when he's gone, no one's coming back. So this is what we have now in this lifetime. This is our chance to learn as much as we can. Now, we have this potential of these mental powers to understand these cycles and these energies and these mind powers. But until we live in harmony with the laws of creation and nature, our civilization is going to devolve and get worse, because we're relying on computers and robots and machines and chemicals. We're going away. We're heading in the direction away from nature.
Yeah, it's already happening.
Towards it. It's already happening.
I mean, like the autism numbers say it all. Like where I was young, this was kind of rare, and now 1 in a dozen is absolutely criminal. And we got like Trump and all these people who I end all wars and I only do good and I only do this, but they want to solve these problems. They're just chasing low frequency stuff. And not gonna get too much into detail here, but do you got anything more on this? Otherwise, I would ask you a few other questions, like things we don't know, considering other alien races. In the last video, we talked about the humanoid forms, which just makes sense. Like if you got a more water planet, even more water world than we are, maybe you got like blueprints in nature mixing with each other. Got like humanoids with fish features, humanoid with bird features, humanoid with like hot skin, cold skin, acid skin, all these type of things. And just showing like the humanoid blueprint is like, it's like a great choice to manifest bodies in this world, in this universe. And I think even on our planet, with all these toxic things, all these bad things, all this bad behavior, and so much resonance with nature, people are still getting 100 years old. You must imagine, we got this body, this small body, which is like, we need like 10, 15 years or 20 years to even get the tutorial done and know what's going on. And then we can express our soul through our body, I would put it that way, and create our personality. And we're still getting 80, 90 years old. And I know these extraterrestrials are getting like, how much? 1,000 years? Like 10 times what we are. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword. On the one side, I think it's good that we're not going to get 1,000 years, because otherwise we got like people who are gripping onto the power structure for even longer, and we already got people that don't want to die. On the other hand, if there were no storage banks and no soul, how can you even evolve if you only got 100 years? There must be something more. Like it just makes sense when you put it into the time frames of the universe. How old is the planet? How old is the moon? And all this stuff. And you're just getting 100 years old. I mean, just a thought here, but it just makes sense that we come back again. And I'm going to ask you, like they said, like you said at the beginning, where Adamski was getting confronted, there are no other people in contact with extraterrestrials. And I mean, they say that, and then we got like special things with Randall Stevens, but this is all Plejaren stuff. And we got the humanoid ETs, but often in the contact reports in German, they say die Fremden, but the foreigners, the others.
Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, that's very interesting because they said there are actually many other interactions with extraterrestrials on this planet from different not even so much high evolved than the Pleiadian, like the Pleiaren, but still more evolved than we are. And there's like one thing I remembered, like I think the next planet with people is actually 4 light years away, 4 or 5 light years away. And it's massively overpopulated, I think. I'm not sure.
That didn't work out too well for them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's like just an example. It even can go much worse. I think they said they're like even more, like a digit more.
Billion.
Yeah, 40 billion. Man, what the
Well, they're all dead now.
Okay. This is already done. Okay. So
Well, let me talk about some of the other extraterrestrial
Yeah.
races. In what I've read in the 926 plus contact reports, from what I found, I started making a list of all the different races that have been to Earth, and there were more than 20 different extraterrestrial races that have been to Earth throughout our history. Now, right now, there's a few besides the Pleiaren, and the biggest and most common cause of UFO sightings is not the Pleiaren, it's the foreigners or the Fremden, like you said. Now, I don't know who they are or where they're from because Billy's not allowed to talk about it, and the Pleiaren are not allowed to contact them. They want to stay out of it. The Pleiaren are not the cause of the UFO sightings going on. Now, a lot of UFO sightings are a terrestrial military craft, but besides that, there are extraterrestrial UFOs being seen. And I have some theories, and some other people have theories, but these foreigners are either visiting or they may have bases like under the oceans, which is where a lot of these orbs and tic tacs are being traced back to. So, I mean, they're obviously not living in our cities, so they have to be staying somewhere else. So either they have bases under the ocean or in remote places or in maybe Antarctica or somewhere away from everyone, or they're under the ocean in the earth where no one can go, or they're coming back and forth from wherever they're from. But the contact reports say that there are and have been extraterrestrials living on Earth who are the survivors or ancestors of ancient races who came here long ago, like maybe the blue people or the Agarthans or the people who lived under Mount Shasta and the Aleutian Islands for a little bit. There was very few of them, but there was some cities. And then there's people, under the Gobi Desert. And so there are some races. We don't know who the foreigners are. We can only speculate, but they may be the group that interferes with the West, with America, with America's military, and gets into a confrontation or an open mass reveal if things continue. And this was written about a very long time ago. And they are not as benevolent as the Pleiaren. They are not benevolent. So if we keep shooting at their ships, they may shoot back.
Yeah, and there was even another story I just remembered it. There was like Independence Day scenario approaching us in the 80s, in the late 70s or something, like where they talked about there was like some totally not benevolent ET species which was coming here. Like they said, they got like coming from a world of 5 planets and 3 suns or something along those lines, and they actually took care of them. And it's like this is like it's just a little footnote, but I think it's pretty interesting because if this is all real and we got the Pleiadians, which are basically like I would say like the good ones or like a benevolent species to us, then we got the other side as well. It's not only good, it's not only bad. There's always a mix, and it just makes sense. And there was even you told about it, past leaders who came off track were actually influenced by some groups, and there's like where it's good, there's also evil, and I think it just makes sense. And yeah, I think it's very interesting, and we're gonna at the end we're gonna talk about like some contact report redactions and what's like to read between the lines. And I find it very interesting that they're gonna say, yeah. I mean, as far as I'm getting it, I think no other like sighting was pretty, maybe like just a few where actually Plejaren ships were sighted, because they are so much advanced they don't need to show their ships. The ships doesn't make any sound. This is just for to presentation matters. Was not just it's not so primitive. And yeah, these other ETs are basically, they're saying they are not on the same tech level. And yeah, this is like some very mysterious stuff, and I find it they're getting mentioned a lot because many people are asking. I think there's always this question coming in the bulletin where people are asking what's about the others, die Fremden, and so forth. So I find it very important that we cut on that.
There's also a description of I would call it the futuristic Earth people. So they're human and they have advanced technology, which is probably a couple hundred years more than our current technology. So that's another group. I don't know if it's also the Fremden or the foreigners. I feel like a lot of these ancient writings of Enoch and Emmanuel, I feel like they're all coming to a head with the end of Billy's life as well. And we do know some things that are going to happen in the future, but there's also a lot we don't know, and a lot that Billy is not allowed to talk about, and a lot that they dot out in the contact reports and redact while they're talking about it. Now, some of that stuff is personal stuff about the Plejaren when they have personal conversations. So Billy has had probably more than 1,000 meetings with the Plejaren outside of the contact reports. So there's a lot that people don't realize, that even though there's only 926 contact reports, he's had more than 1,000 personal private meetings, which they discuss stuff. And then there's things that they talk about in the contact reports where they say it out loud, but Billy doesn't write it down because he knows what wars are coming. He knows what diseases are coming. He knows what places are going to be bombed and destroyed by natural disasters. He knows who's going to be assassinated. He knows, what computer technology is going to do and where these robots and satellites are going. That is not going to work out good for us. So he knows the timeline of these wars. He's talked about stuff, not only natural disasters, but how eventually we do, probably in the next few hundred years, do build bases on the moon, and we do make it to Mars, and we do find artifacts of past human life on Mars, and we start exploring the solar system, and then only eventually after another 1,000 or 2,000 years, we develop enough to travel out into the universe when we develop travel faster than light. But until then, the population is going to increase, and all life on Earth is going to be threatened.
Yeah. I mean, I can even notice this on myself sometimes when you said we are so into the technology and so much away from nature, and I'm actually going outside a lot and I like being outside and stuff. But even if you work on the computer and you do something in your free time, it's not healthy. You need to be in balance with all these things. And even if you're partially aware of things, it's going to be hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to do everything right. And yeah, with all this information, there's a lot to learn. Like you can go into meditation, health, everything we mentioned. I'm going to put links in the description. So if you're attracted to any topic, you can just browse it for yourself and see what for yourself. Even if we do a 10-hour video, it's not going to be cover everything. And in this video, we're jumping around and we decided to cover a lot of topics, and there are going to be a lot of timestamps where people can navigate if they don't want to watch the whole thing, but I recommend to watch the whole thing because it's very interesting. And yeah, I mean, before we go to the last point, I got some minor things here. There's so much talk about the Plejaren and about the characters, Semyasi, Ptah, and all these things. And there was the picture situation where like obviously fake pictures were going around. Maybe there is some real pictures of an extraterrestrial woman out there somewhere. And yeah, I mean, you're in the FIGU and you learned this for over a decade. Like how you would describe these people. I mean, a humanoid, that's what we know, but like, I mean, not many people are gonna be in contact and gonna see them for themselves. Like lucky Mr. Adamski, who was like basically getting an alien contact for writing a hoax story. But yeah, some paradox thing. But how you would describe them, or what is the difference between us, like us humans on our planet? Is there any difference from the anatomy? It's like a different
There
size.
are anatomical differences inside their body, but imagine you, instead of being 33, you're 330 years old.
Yeah.
And you look exactly the same. You're healthy. You never get sick. You have no diseases. You know you're going to live another 700 years or 600 or 700 years or more. Your home planet has zero crime, has zero accidents, has zero pollution. You can do any kind of work you want. Nothing costs money. You have very strong telepathic, mental powers. You can use your mental powers. You can basically travel anywhere and maybe even forward and backwards in time if you wanted. You've also not only been to college once, you've got 10 or 20 college degrees in different areas in, nanotechnology or medicine or surgery or engineering or history. And so you have multiple degrees.
Yeah, it sounds perfect, but it's with a lot of hard work, we maybe can reach this point. And if everybody like basically acknowledges the fact that we are bound to this planet, and it's not like in German we say nach mir die Sintflut, which means if I'm gone, I don't give a damn about everything when I'm gone, basically. And it's exactly the opposite. We are here, can shape this world with what we do in this life, maybe the next life, maybe in the life after that. And we built this it's like, it's going so deep. Like imagine you having a child, and then 100 years later, you are getting born again, and your child, which you raised, is basically your grandfather or something. Like just like not in a familiar sense, but it's basically we can, if everybody just do a little bit work for all the planet, for all the people, for the collective, it's actually, I think we can do this and we can reach a similar state, like not actually a similar state, but we can come on the right track. And you said, yeah, the only thing I remember is like they got some difference with their earlobes or something, and they're a little bit taller. That's just interesting because I'm interested into genetics and stuff, and I'm just
they may have some different internal organs, but they're not allowed to talk about it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah.
They don't need to sleep as long, and they don't need to eat as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they are still humans, but it's all like on an extreme high level. I mean, It makes sense. Yeah, good. I mean, we talked about the ET races, the humanoid races in the last episode. We talked about the foreigners right now. Is there like one thing I was going to add is like many people argue and say, okay, the Pleiadians, the Pleiadian star cluster is just stars, and there's like dead planets, there can be no life there. And then it's actually, there's like a little twist in the story, or it's like a little detail which is pretty important. They are actually not living in our space-time configuration. They are actually, or in our, I would say like reality, we can say it that way. They are living like in another space-time configuration, which is basically, I don't know if they basically time travel every time they leave this planet or like dimension travel, but I think that's very important. Like it's going in so high levels that some people say, oh, this case can't be true because the Pleiadians are like basically there are dead planets around this. And you see, you need to dig deeper, and you see this is not the problem here. And like you talked in the beginning about the different persons where Billy was in contact with, and like Asket is actually not from Era, it's actually Pleiaren. She's actually not only coming from a different planet or a different race, she is a humanoid woman, but she's coming from a whole different universe. Maybe we can touch on this because we like now in the segment where we are, it's more the fantastical stuff, more the really out there stuff. And I think it's interesting as well that you talked about like the reality and the like more the fine matter concept. And now we can talk maybe how the universe is created basically, and there's like a twin universe, and there's like even a gate in between these universes where like something like a stargate or something, a tunnel. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on this if you want.
Millions of years ago, there was a huge war in Lyra, and a group of people escaped this war, and they were highly technically advanced, and they ended up penetrating a different universe and settling there and evolving there. Well, they eventually reconnected with the Plejaren, which are the people from Lyra and Vega, and they're still friends and they share technology now. They're even more advanced than the Plejaren, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So,
and there's even more to this. There was the story where Semjase, like there was this incident where Semjase was hitting her head, and she was like, even there was like some health operation. I think even Asket's people were like doing the first thing, and then they even got like in contact with another race, which is like on a total different level. They can just teleport all around and are basically on a godlike level in some aspects, as far as my recollection is. And they like even she got some severe brain injury, and they just like got some liquid matter, which is like basically recreating the tissue of the brain, like things we can dream about literally. But I think it's pretty nice because it still shows that there are humans and they got like fragile bodies in a sense. I mean, if we go on a planet where there are like only people like stone age people, we are like so sensitive because we are so high evolved, and like not really too much, but you get what I'm saying in this analogy, that we can't go there because it would be very dangerous to us. And it's like the same for them with here. If they come here and they got like some crazy guy who's like swinging and they make one mistake, it could be over. It's like the same if we were in the jungle where encountering uncontacted tribes. So yeah, I think it's very interesting that they are like, even it's not only the Plejarans who are very evolved, there's like another universe, other species, they got contacts with even, it's like it's more interesting than the weirdest fiction novel. And yeah, I just wanted to mention this because we're in
it
that area.
shows that the Plejaren are human too. They have families, they have children, they are born and they die, they laugh and they love, and sometimes they have accidents. So if you can imagine Semjase's accident, the most sci-tech, surgery, sci-fi surgery scene, I could picture
Yeah.
it, how they were working on it when you read it.
Yeah.
And also, Semjase lost her husband, whose ship got sucked into a star.
Crazy.
So she lost her husband. So, they have human stories. They've also explored other systems where they found cavemen on a planet.
Yeah,
And
or other systems where they got nuclear war and they're pretty similar to our
nuclear
state.
war, or something similar to us,
Yeah.
but better, where the cars don't run on gasoline, they run on synthetic biofuel instead of
Yeah.
gasoline. So there's anything you can imagine is out there.
Yeah, they always say, I mean, one more thing, they always say there's like dinosaurs is not a singular thing on our planet. There's like either there's like nothing, like no life, or there's like dinosaurs, or there is like advanced life, humanoid life, alien life, whatever you want to call it. But there are just like a few planets where you got like some researchers going there and looking for these dinosaur creatures. But I remembered something where like Plejaran people go into holiday on some other planets, and it's just like, I mean, it's far out there and it's nothing really important, but I think it just shows that they're like, it's every aspect of reality is included into this case. It's not just like Charles Hall or the ETs. Oh, the ET said I'm so super smart, and yeah, but I make no notes and I got nothing for you. I just met ETs and I wrote 3 books and I make money off it, but I got nothing to tell you. Got nothing to tell you, man. It's like, and yeah, they're on the military base and it's always the same narrative. So yeah.
There are people who claim to be contactees that kind of come up with a similar story that say, oh, I met these benevolent advanced ETs and they're saying we should stop making nuclear weapons, and they don't want nuclear war, and that we need to be more peaceful and spiritual. There's kind of like this spiritual theme because they're more advanced and they want us to be peaceful and they want us to focus more on spiritual things, but they don't give any details.
Yeah.
Like
And
you
not on
said.
this level or scale. And I think maybe, I mean, we are open-minded. You say, I mean, you are pretty straightforward. You say, I don't care about other cases. I don't care about other stuff, which is pretty understandable at your level where you're researching this. But I mean, there could be like maybe the Ariel school incident or stuff where like basically some another benevolent race just saw what's going on here and landing on a school. And I mean, there's basically just good messages. Nobody of these people wrote a book or something. There's no motive to hoax it. Could be counterintelligence, psyop, whatever, but there's actually no motive to do this. And it could be, it's not saying that everything else is 100% false, but we can say there's a lot of noise, at least 90% is noise, maybe even more. And there are maybe a few incidents which are basically real, but they are real because there's a military craft, there's a terrestrial craft. UFO just means unidentified. That doesn't mean aliens, or it doesn't mean alien or anti-gravity craft. It just means unidentified. And yeah, there's some unidentified things which are pretty interesting. And
The Plejaren don't count one-time sightings or encounters as contacts.
yeah, it is.
Think of all of the UFO cases claimed in the world. Did it happen more than once? No. Most of them are just one-time things. If you take out things that only happen once, you get rid of 95% of the cases.
Yeah.
So that means they weren't deliberate. They were accidental.
Yeah, one time is nothing. If you got pain in your stomach for 1 minute and then it's gone, you don't care about it. If you got it 3 times, you might go to the doctor. You know, it's like not, yeah, I get what you mean. The sample size is inflated by so many things. And if you mentioned the channel Third Phase of Moon, these guys got like 4K videos out there talking about noise to signal ratio. I mean, it's crazy, man. And it's the perception is the other way around. People are interested in UFOs. They hear Billy Meier. They see, oh, there's this picture from the TV series, and they're out. And maybe that's not even a bad thing. You know, it's like, because all these pictures and stuff, it's not really getting you anywhere. The data and the teachings and the stuff is pretty valuable stuff. And we can go into so many more things.
Let's talk about big feet and little feet. So let's talk about Bigfoot real quick.
Okay, yeah. Sure, man, go ahead.
It's very simple. The Plejaren say the Bigfoot are real, and they only live in a couple areas of the planet, and they were basically a genetic manipulation of humanoids, or they were either an experiment or naturally evolved, but they were an offshoot of humanoids, and now there's very, very few of them. They're almost extinct, and they're going to go extinct. So maybe in the Pacific Northwest there's a couple, maybe in the Himalayas there's a couple. Billy actually saw one from a long distance away, personally, in his travels in the Himalayan mountains, and they're real, and that's it. That's all you need to know. We shouldn't mess with them. We should just let them be and leave them alone. Now, let's talk about the little feet. In Billy Meier's property, there are these little elf extraterrestrials that came a couple times and visit him, and there are footprints in the concrete. And actually, Bernadette actually took a picture of one of them running, and she just got a picture of the footprint in the mud and his blurry helmet as he was like running past the camera from a very close range, like right under her feet, basically ran by. So there's big feet and little feet and everything in between, and there's evidence of giants on Earth, and whether they were extraterrestrials or the offspring of the extraterrestrials and the humans, you know, everything out there that you hear about is basically half true. You know, all the religious stories, the fantasies, the Atlantis and the giants and the fallen angels, it's all half truths. But if you want the full truths, go to the contact reports.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you said, the Atlantis thing, it's such a deep topic. There's so much to know. Like where we was researching this, I was researching this. Like even like you casually mentioning Mu and Lemuria, and I actually learned it's like totally different things. And like there's so much depth to it, like, and some skeptics just say, okay, he's just copying, repackaging stuff, but
the difference is Billy's seen it with his own eyes.
In current times, recently we learned that many conspiracies basically got a true core, like not necessarily reptilians controlling our planet, but yeah, we see it as like sometimes you just maybe listen to these people, and I think the skill people need is to not crystallize and be on so high conviction on things. Just leave it and zoom out and take what you need, and then don't proselytize, don't hate, keeping it neutral. I think that's pretty important. And yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? We can go to the 5th point. Or do you got anything else about like universal knowledge, things we didn't know yet, interesting bits from the contact notes that stuck with you?
What's the 5th point?
The 5th point would be like some special things. I would I got some things which I forget about. I would like your favorite photos you want to talk about, maybe, if you're not. And I would say like some people who have done investigations like Ra Zahi with the wedding cake, and for the religious studies, James Deardorff, who was actually approaching the thing from a theological angle, and maybe just like some research and according people, so people can check out the work basically related to the case research. And yeah, I mean, the last point would be if you want to talk about recent events. And yeah, I mean, we already talked about what's going to happen in the future, what the Plejarians say, what's going to happen 2029, which
we talked about. Okay, we talked about Ra Zahi a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just like not going into deep, just like where you know, like I think Purple Cheng, whatever the name is like a pretty interesting witness, in my opinion, because she's not like integrated into the FIGU clan. I would say it that way. It's like pretty wild story if you're like giving more on witness reports, and I think that's a pretty nice entry into the case. And she's like even a person who saw like Askedos by herself, so right. It's like another person which was basically in contact with them, or they were able to see.
She's an eyewitness, and it comes to the point, if you're looking at this as a new person, how many eyewitnesses do you need until you would just accept that everyone's telling the truth, when none of these people have a reason to lie?
The thing is just like many new people who are like, I know many people who are pretty open to this, and they think, oh, it's so many witnesses and it must be all like some shenanigans going on. But yeah, I think you're totally right. There's so much. I think the witnesses are hard to deny. Like even like these special witnesses, which are not from, basically not in the group. It just like it makes no difference. It's a witness account. But for people who are external, they would say, okay, man, these like, oh, it's like this cult allegation, And it's just like, if there's a real contact with ETs, I think it's actually justified to build a group and study it, So for the skeptic mind, it's a cult, But everything interested where a group of people studying it, it's going to be something which resembles something like a cult, And it's like an easy point to hate. So we can, yeah. I mean, is there something else to say where you want to elaborate on the 4th point, like?
Well, let me talk about James Deardorff briefly.
Okay, then we go to the 5th point and talking about like some special bits and characters research, and just look where flow has taken us. Okay, man, go ahead.
James Deardorff was the only person, to my knowledge, who studied the Talmud manual forensically with a scientific background. What he did was he took an early translation of the Talmud manual and he compared it line by line with the Gospel of Matthew. If you want to be a real researcher and not just a talking head on television, you would actually do the work and compare scientifically the difference line by line and compare and contrast. What he found, after many years of studying it with his professional background, he determined that the Talmud manual was written before the Gospel of Matthew. That means it's the only original, and everything else after that was a bad copy. Now, you could do the same thing today with Canon 31 and 33 of the Om and compare it to the old Book of Enoch, and what you'll find is that the Om is actually the real story, and the Book of Enoch is the bad copy. You'll find the exact same thing if you just look at them and compare them side by side. There's so much more detail and richness and completeness and more logical sense. You can tell you're getting a watered down version of the ancient story from the old text, because every time they copied it from one version to another, it got watered down more and more and got farther away from accuracy. Billy is bringing the accurate story once and for all to the people of Earth. It's worth looking into the Book of Om, which has the real Book of Enoch, not the one from the Ethiopian Bible, which is 1,000 years old and is translated a bunch of different times by people who didn't understand the original language. So every time they copied it, it got farther and farther away from, or it lost less and less of the full story. People couldn't even read and write back then, so you're barely to get anything written down from back then. But now we have Billy as the seventh herald of the Nocodemian job, and he's bringing the full truth to everyone for the last time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, great. That's like one more thing. The Deerdorf guy, I just remember that he was pretty emotional because he was like he studied religion and these these casual religious scriptures and books for decades. He was like, where I saw the interview, he was like pretty up there in age, and he was getting pretty emotional, where he was like, even like after he researched this, just from talking it. And I think there's so many people who are really very deeply religious, and I hope these people maybe find the Billy Meier case, check out the stuff which is like religion related, and see maybe it resonates with them. Like it resonated with him, and he was studying the normal religions for 40 years or something. So it's never too late actually to get an open mind. And yeah, we talked about Ra Zahi and his 700-page report. I mean, Michael Horn, we can mention he's like the official spokesperson of FIGU in the USA, if I'm not mistaken, or in general, I don't know really. But he's like basically sacrificing his whole life to fight for the case. And he's going on podcasts. He's trying to talk to scientists, trying to spread the word. And he's pretty up there in age. So I hope somebody is going to take his spot and fight the good fight. And I want to talk about one other thing, and that's like the recent reception in ufology. Like, why is the case not there where it's supposed to be? Why are so many people who are uploading one UFO video a week and got millions of subscribers are basically not talking about the case? And we see it like with the Area 52 channel and Chris Ramsey. He basically got pressured into talking about the case because he's claiming these are the best pictures, these are the best pictures. And then like normal people in ufology saying to him that, did you see the Billy Meier case? And did you see these pictures? They are way better. And he's just like you saw the comment, he was saying, I'm way ahead. And then he proceeds to have a 2-hour segment in his video where he basically said, like what I said at the beginning, that he said he believed that Billy Meier got some real experiences and then the sightings got to him. And you need to, if you dissect the sentence and you are a UFO researcher where you think, if anything, like one case is real that I'm covering, it's like the biggest thing ever. And you casually say he got real sightings and then the sightings got to him, interview the guy. Do a deep dive on the case, even if you think it's wrong. You're covering all these other cases, and I'm pretty sure you're not compelled about every other case. And now you're saying, oh, I'm not sure if it's real or wrong. Just cover the case and let people came to their own conclusion. Like we do it. We said, you be the judge. We are not saying it's real, it's false. We are just attracted to the information, and you are more deep into this than I am, but I can understand you and you can understand my position. So I think, we can do like 3-4 more videos with 3-hour length and talk about this case. And we are not even remotely I'm not even remotely a few percent in, but you said you're not even studied the half or maybe half of the material from the case.
I want to talk about what I think is one of the best photos, which is the fighter jet in the background of the beam ship, which there are photographs of and was professionally analyzed. So let me just say this. This is from a magazine 2000 plus article. Quote, I have known Billy Meier since 1976. At that time, I visited him in Wexicon with a group of people. Together with him, we went to the landing sites and conversed with him. This intrigued me. Shortly afterward, I sighted a UFO with my parents and my wife just when I was about to take them to one of those landing sites. The object was round. Suddenly, it shot into the air. Then it stopped, dashed off sideways, and then it came back to the center before disappearing in a downward motion like a falling leaf. Billy gave me several of his photos. The picture that impressed me the most was of a UFO and an Air Force Mirage fighter plane. I made serious efforts to uncover the truth about it. Then the following occurred. A UFO convention was being held at the Zurich Hotel, where I met a man who was with the Air Force. We entered into a conversation, and when he told me he was with the Air Force, I asked him about the photo. He confirmed the photo was authentic and that they knew everything about the contacts. I met with the man several more times, during which he said he was part of the Army's Special Services. At our next meeting, he carried a black briefcase from which he removed a portfolio, a dossier, which he allowed me to read, and on page 3 was the story about the Mirage fighter jet. In brief, the article stated that those who have knowledge about this case must keep it a secret for the rest of their lives. Thereupon, I asked my acquaintance what he thought of Billy Meier, and he told me the military knew everything was true, but the people aren't allowed to know about it. Later, Murner was even able to glean the name of the Mirage pilot, and he contacted him. The Air Force officer confirmed the incident without revealing any details. Does the Swiss Air Force have additional information about Meier's contacts? It is certainly not coincidental that years ago the Swiss Army seized the elevated area above the Meier farm as a site for a rocket launching ramp. Today, it is only used as an observation or listening post. Evidence exists which demonstrates that the Swiss Air Force could very well know about the authenticity of Meier's contacts, as reported in the May 1998 edition of Magazine 2000 Plus, number 127. An official of the Swiss Military Airspace Safety Monitoring Unit informed Swiss ufologist Luc Bergen and the MUFON CES research group about recorded data pertaining to radar sightings of unknown flying objects in the Swiss airspace. According to their information, 236 UFO radar sightings took place in the airspace above the land of the Swiss Confederates between the 25-month period April 1st, 1993 to April 31st, 1995. Particularly noteworthy were the clusters of UFO radar positions above the Zurich highlands, precisely in the area where Billy Meier has his contacts.
Yeah, I mean, this is like great context to the picture. That's like pretty nice. Pretty loads of data behind this picture. And I mean, even in our last video, first of all, I'm going to recommend it to everyone who's going to want to learn more about the evidence and about the different reports people wrote, even intelligence personnel. And we got it in our last episode for Line 4, where Doogs made a great presentation and brought a lot of great reports where you can read what other people think, like similar reports he just told us about. And I mean, in our last video we even got comments. I'm going to read it real quick. I'm going to read it real quick and put it on the screen. I mean, it's just anecdotal, but I don't know, man. Why should people lie about this?
Gun. That comment is a smoking gun.
I'm a Swiss Air Force captain pilot, and I can confirm that at the time in the 70s, we visually observed 3 UFOs entering Swiss airspace from the northeastern German borders towards the outskirts of Zurich, including radar confirmation. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty crazy.
And we have the American investigators who brought back this picture to photo labs in the United States. And when they analyzed this photo, they identified both objects, but then also that the jet had an exhaust plume coming out the back in infrared. That's another smoking gun.
Yeah.
Literally, smoking aircraft.
Literally smoking gun, yeah. Flying smoking gun. Yeah, I mean, that's great.
Who else has that kind of evidence that can be, verified? Zero. Nobody.
And this
except the military, which they're not going to share with the public.
And this type of evidence, you need to dig a little deeper. You won't find this type of evidence, corroboration in 5 minutes while researching the case. So I think many people hear the Billy Meier case for the first time and maybe they give it a rest because it's too much, but maybe later on, if they're interested into the topic, you're gonna get in contact with this case again, because like you said, even there's not even hoaxes on the same quality. Like, I cannot say it enough, but like for me, it was like I came into this field and I encountered like the Billy Meier case, the Chris Bledsoe case, Charles Hall, all these people at the same time, Bob Lazar, it was all at the same time. And it's like day and night. It's basically like day and night. If we do the same for the Chris Bledsoe case, like granted you studied the case, we're gonna do maybe a 2-hour thing, and that's like where we talk about every little detail, and it's done. And now I even got more questions. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's no comparison. And yeah, I mean, even if you think like what we just told about the quality of the case for itself, you must think if there are bad actors who are like basically want to protect the narrative of religions, protect the narrative that we are the greatest thing in the universe. It's not allowed to push this case, to tell like people this case deserves more research. So yeah, I even think even if like Chris Ramsey and Jesse Michaels and etc. want to do a deep dive on the case, I don't think it's going to be very well received in the US internal circles. I don't know, because why is there so much media like output about the case? It's like, I don't know, I even get it, like even if Chris Ramsey doesn't believe into the case, he could just do like a big video, it would get millions of views, and it's like easy content when you consider, if you're considering the vast layers of the case, but he's just not doing it. He was saying, oh, sometimes maybe I'll do a deep dive, but it's just like plausible deniability. He's never going to do this. Now he said something about the case, and I mean, if I wake up and see this on my feed, interview with Michael Horn plus documentary, I'm gonna take a look and give everybody a chance. Like I'm not hating everybody. I'm not hating anybody who's not like who's making maybe not quality UFO content, because it all depends. I mean, you said about you're not interested in any other things, but at the same time we talked about like maybe there are some other totally unrelated things going deep down in the ocean. We know nothing about the oceans. We got like 5% or something, and from the ocean floor, I don't even want to talk about that. We doesn't know our own planet. So there are locations and positions where maybe other things are playing out, but I understand your point, because in all these other cases, you can't learn something from this. It's just a mystery and some mind candy and mysticism about ufology in general, but you won't learn anything about this. And this is like why this is so great. And yeah, we covered a lot. Do you got anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I have a lot to learn still, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my little knowledge that I have. And I want to thank everyone who works behind the scenes at FIGU to publish the contact reports and get Billy's books printed and publish the newsletters. And I want to thank everyone in the United States that shares on social media, even if they only get a couple views. I've, learned from experience that this case is worth investing study and time in, because it goes way beyond UFOs. It gets down to the nature of the human spirit and the purpose of human life. And I wish everyone a wonderful day and peace on earth, and get along with nature and grow your own food and maybe plant a tree, because we're going to be here again in our next life, and our next life, and our next life. And if we work hard now, we can make the world a better place.
Yeah, great words for the ending. And I just want to mention, like, if people are interested in ufology and are watching Area 52, watching all these UFO creators, which you can do, and you're interested into the Billy Meier case, push it. Write a comment, ask about the case, ask about why these people don't cover the case. And yeah, I think just the ufology is so poisoned with all these nonsense things. And I don't know, I think in the future, the field will split up in some sense, because we will at some point know, everybody on this planet will know that we are not the most intelligent, superior thing in the universe. And then we can actually learn and be open-minded and can profit from all these, from this information. And maybe even at some time, in some day, we can profit from a open relationship with another species and can compare things. And yeah, this is like basically the start of this. Like, we got a lot to learn, and yeah, this was a great conversation, and we're gonna do more in the future. I'm certain about that. And yeah, thank you for your time and your presentation and all the information you know about the case. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one, and I'm looking forward what people think about this, what people find interesting about the case. And yeah, if you wanna know something, or you got some questions were created while you're watching this video, just write them below in the comments and we will answer them. Yeah, so goodbye.
Salome.
In his mind, it couldn't have happened because all his circuits would fry, because he didn't know how to explain it. And my mother just stood up for it and said, well, it did happen, and you saw it, and I saw it. And it hit the edge of my room and then went out, and there was still like the brown mark where it was burned in the corner of the room. So like we had plenty of evidence. So there was stuff going on, and there was this push-pull with my mom, who just believed in the primacy, I guess, or the importance of experience, like we saw it. And the pull from my dad, who believed in, if you didn't understand, if you didn't have a theory for something, it couldn't exist.